What is up, RotoGrinders? NFL Pick 6 Show, week number 17. Better late than never. Our apologies for being a little bit late in the week. Of course, this was the holidays week. Hopefully, everybody out there had a spectacular holiday. That's why we are recording live on a Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock on the East Coast. Heads up, we just might have a different time for week 18 as well. We're kind of bouncing back and forth, possibly Thursday night. We shall see. Stay tuned. That's why you turn on notifications. That's why you subscribe. That's why you hit all the bells, hit all the things, hit all the buttons. As always, usual suspects. We have Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. We have John Daigle, Establish the Run. Daigle, hopefully your holiday was well. We're almost there. Week 17, championship week for season-long streets, championship week for best ball stuff. How we doing? How we looking?
I'm the one without kids or family in the area, so I feel like I had the easiest time of everyone here. I literally rewatched all the Mission Impossibles and passed out at 7 p.m. on Christmas evening. That was it.
What was your favorite Mission Impossible? What was your favorite one?
I still think, having rewatched them now all in the last calendar year as well, last offseason, I still think Dead Reckoning, the most recent one, it's not recency bias. That one just kicks ass. When you could take a motorcycle and jump off a mountain onto a train through a window, that is the best stunt.
That's been going on for almost 30 years, by the way. 1996 was the first one with Tom Cruise.
And they only get better.
Long franchise. Wow.
How much Uncharted 2 do you think the dude that made Dead Reckoning played? Because they essentially just took the train sequence and you recreated that in movie form.
Tom Cruise is the last action hero.
Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is a better Uncharted movie than Uncharted.
Sure. The Uncharted movie was a big disaster, right? The games were fun. I enjoyed playing the games with that Mark Wahlberg.
The games were a movie.
Yeah, that's another way of saying it as well. Rich, did you have I'm guessing you did not have a marathon session of watching any particular series last 30 years.
The marathon session of watching kids, open stuff and putting stuff together. No, I didn't put anything we pre-put things together. You have to go that route. But yeah, it was a busy week. I did catch up to the movies though. I watched both movies.
Yes. We'll be talking later on about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And Rich, I know you want to get it out there. You already got it out there in our private chat. You have some thoughts on challengers.
I do.
We discussed last week.
Very disappointed that I wasn't around to be a part of that last week.
Yeah. I
did go back. Me and my wife listened to you guys, not to make the movie talk in the front, but me and my wife listened to your guys' actual review after the movie.
Okay. That's a nice little tease because I'm curious. I'm curious to hear the thoughts from the Rebars. Okay, so what we're doing here, typically, right, we talk about the three best games, the three best games by default this week. Hopefully Thursday Night Football was not like a hint as far as what we're going to get football this weekend. What an absolute disaster as far as Seattle and the Bears. I watched 0 seconds of that, and I feel like I watched too much of it. I mean, just from what I saw on the social media stuff out there, it's like, oh my God, apparently that was an absolute disaster. But, with so many games, the Christmas games, the Saturday games, we're down to just 8 on DK, 8-game slate on DK, 9-game slate on FanDuel. And amongst those teams that are playing, like Vegas, the Saints, there's 16 teams. We got Dallas, whatever's left of them, Cleveland. Also, we don't talk a lot of weather, but I should mention, we're not going to focus on that. But Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth, his article, he currently has 3 oranges out there. Orange is a scary color. Orange in Washington, orange in Cleveland, orange in Buffalo. I'll go ahead and drop this link in the chat in the YouTube if you guys want to look at this at your own leisure. But, of course, you want to follow Roth on Twitter and the socials, and he updates this, and he'll update this page the closer we get to lock. Obviously, we're several days out, so you can only do so much with a forecast.
DTR in the rain. What could go wrong?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, DTR in perfect weather is already wrong. Now add another element.
It's gonna be terrible. Yeah, 3 orange games, and TJ on top of it as well, throwing it up on the screen. But what we're gonna give the people. We figure there's a big enough window. We're doing this on Friday. Let's talk about the Saturday 3-game slate before we fully dive in, and then we're gonna focus on two main games on the 8-game, 9-game FanDuel DK slate. We'll discuss that, and of course we'll run it back in our favorite place, position by position on the main slate. But John, I guess do you want to go position by position? We're not going to go game by game here, just kind of slate overview Daigle, as far as the Saturday slate. Two games are not like the other. We have the Chargers at New England. New England is a 4-point dog at home, getting 42 and a half as far as the total. Some nice totals with the Denver at Cincinnati. Cincinnati minus 3.5, on a run of late. Of course, that offense has been spectacular. It's been humming. And a 48 total in the Dome, which is always nice this time of year. Arizona at the Rams. Do you have anything as far as overview-wise? And then we can kind of give our favorite plays position by position.
It seems like one where we're all trying to take advantage of what is the highest total. I believe maybe Bucks and Panthers are still creeping up there, but highest total of week 17 and the Bengals and Broncos. And given that it's a 3-game slate, you can definitely just find ways to go overweight, since even stacking Bo Nix entails cheap receivers coming along with him, Marvin Mims, Devon Bailey. So there are many different ways you can go. We're going to see what happens with the Chargers backfield. Otherwise, similar to the last short slate we had when it was a 2 running back slate, that could be the same thing here, because maybe it is just we're boiling this down, depending what happens to J.K. Dobbins, to only the Rams running backs and Kyron Williams. And then, of course, Chase Brown getting every touch here. So I think it could be interesting, but it just seems like a way we're going to try to overstack that Bengals Broncos game in particular.
I was looking at ownership stuff for the Saturday slate, the 3-gamer, and you mentioned Chase Brown, like 75%.
Yeah,
he's
already 40% every 10-game slate. Now add in 3 games. Like, yeah, you know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, what are you supposed to do? You're going to sit there and root for an injury, or you're going to play Chase Brown, basically, because he projects really, really awesome. We can have that conversation in a second. Rich, you got anything as far as the overview? I know, this is also the time of year where teams are getting eliminated. Players that were dealing with stuff are just, they're shutting down. Lamb not on this slate, but I know Arizona, their line is kind of tapping out.
Yep.
Some of the guys that are dinged. Anything you want to speak as far as that in general, or anything in general as far as this 3-gamer before we knock out our favorite plays position by position?
No. And in general, we'll talk about a couple rematches from earlier in the season that, maybe go differently, maybe don't. I would assume Rams Cardinals. Obviously, it's implied that's going to go a lot differently with the Rams opening at, I think, 5.5, and then it's moved through, I think, 7.5, over the course of the week, with the Cardinals being out. It looks like James Conner is going to play, but both their offensive tackles are going to be out of this game, Paris Johnson and Jonah Williams. I don't think if you're chasing the box score for Kyler and Marv, I think from the round 1, you're going to be a little disappointed.
If you're chasing the Rams too, as you said, going a little bit differently, like the Rams, obviously in that first game, that's the one they didn't have Nakua. They lost Cooper Kupp in that game, and they didn't have either Steve Avila or Alaric Jackson in their offensive line. It's just like 2 opposite spectrums of where these teams were at in week 2 at that time.
Yeah, chasing and martingailing is kind of a theme of this season. We're still chasing that Trey McBride touchdown. I swear it's coming. It turns out, Kyler Murray can't just push a button and say give a touchdown to McBride. It doesn't really work that way. I know they're trying.
It works for James Cook.
It does work for James Cook. Yes, it works for him for sure. But 50s, I'm looking at the most updated total. Cincinnati and Denver now up to 50. We got a 5-0 there in Cincy. Arizona and the Rams is 47.5. So, and of course the Chargers and the Pats are still 42.5. Favorite quarterback on the Saturday slate, Rich? What do you got for me?
Yeah, on the Saturday slate, that's pretty interesting. I'll say, obviously Burrow is the best quarterback on the slate. I would say my favorite quarterback, oddly enough, might be Drake May.
You're ready for a reaction.
Yeah.
I think he's good. I think if nothing else, I think New England did good. I think they did a good job.
Well, I think you have on the context of the slate, obviously you have how much does Herbert need to do? Herbert has really bad man coverage splits as well this season. So how much upside does he provide? Bo Nix, I think, is the guy people want to get to, but also I have some hesitations for Bo Nix in this matchup. We haven't seen a lot. When you look at the quarterbacks that have scored fantasy points, a lot of fantasy points against the Bengals, they're all really good players. And I just don't know if Bo Nix is in that group. I don't know if he's in the group with Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson twice and Jaden Daniels, right? I guess you could say Russell Wilson, but at least Russell Wilson has a historic pedigree. He's not as much as his career output, it holds some weight versus the recent like kind of joke that Russ has become, like where we like to poke fun at his personality. But like this is a guy that's probably going to flirt with at least being contention to make the Hall of Fame. I don't know if Bo Nix is there, so I do have some kind of questions. The Bo Nix can run. That I think helps him here. The Bengals have given up a lot of rushing production to quarterbacks, but I feel like Bo Nix is like a chalky answer, and you have Stafford, who I think is in a good spot too. But I would say Drake May based on salary, because I want to get to one of these receivers too. Everyone wants to play Kyron Chase Brown, but I want to get to Jamar Chase or Puka Nacua.
So you mentioned like who's popular, who's not popular. It's only 6 quarterbacks to choose from. A 3-game slate. Our early ownership stuff has it really flat. We have Kyler. This is DK. We have Kyler at 20%, Herbert at 20%, Burrow at 18%, Stafford 16%, Nix 15%, and May at 10%. I rounded up, rounded down. I cut out the decimals, but it seems pretty flat. Just kind of like dealer's choice, player if you want. I don't know if this is going to change or not. And you mentioned May, and he seems to be the most scarce as far as hitting rosters, but still 10% on the 3-gamer. Daigle, your thoughts as far as are we doing the Murray thing again? Because it's just not happening. It's just not happening, right? I know optimals always seem to spit him out, but it's not happening. I don't think it's happening.
People love to play Murray too. And we'll take that one down to the wire because it does seem like James Conner's going to play. That's what it's trending towards, but it could be a late Saturday evening rug pull that we get. So we'll see. Early on, I am hoping J.K. Dobbins is active because I think that's when Kamani Vidal gets a little bit sexier. A team that is, it's still a favorite here, expected to go in and run the ball heavily. Like Rich said, we're not sure how much work Justin Herbert's going to get. The Patriots against RB1s, we talked about this last week when it came to James Cook, and it certainly helped that the Patriots got, I believe it was 28 first downs to make that game more competitive against Buffalo. But this is the same situation where we can lean on their running backs, and J.K. Dobbins, there's just so many outs where even if active, it wouldn't work out. Not only could they scale him or limit him in returning, but also it's the fact that he was still really inefficient the last time he played. He was living on touchdowns in his last 5 games before he got injured. And so I'm willing to bet on that, especially if we're talking about a running back we can flex and Vidal would only have to outscore the wide receivers we would flex instead. So I could definitely get there. My favorite quarterback is still chalky Bo Nix, just because I think in spending down for wide receivers and playing across from both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is possible in this slate if you don't spend up for one of the running backs like Kyron Williams.
All right, let's go ahead and jump to running back. Kind of teased it before with Chase Brown, 76% ownership, just outrageous. Kyron coming at 56%. So we are currently projecting, of course, this can change, and we'll see as far as the news flow and all that. It looks like we did not project Dobbins. That might change, but so that's why Vidal is hitting 33% of stuff right now. Stevenson at 20%, everybody else in single digits. Of course, Benson, assuming he goes, he would jump up if we happen to lose. You guys talked about if we happen to lose Connor. Yeah, Daigle, I'll let you take this first as far as running backs. There's good chalk, there is bad chalk. I think we all agree Chase Brown is good chalk, and I guess we're just going to eat it.
I'm just going to play Chase Brown. I don't need to overthink that situation. I still think it's going to be, wide enough on a 3-game slate where we can get unique elsewhere. And making sure, okay, Trey Benson's still limited all week, questionable. Last week didn't practice at all. So I would imagine it's all Trey Benson if James Conner doesn't go here. But for the Broncos, again, I'm just trying to get involved in that game as a whole because although the Broncos defense has been argued as an elite unit, they're good. But like the one time they faced someone of Joe Burrow's caliber and Lamar Jackson earlier this year, they got scorched. Like Lamar, 16 of 19 for 14.5 yards per attempt and 3 touchdowns against them. Even in the last month, like less than stellar competition, Jameis Winston, it was garbage time, but tossed for 497 yards. Last Thursday, Justin Herbert on limited volume got there with 284 and 9.1 yards per attempt. So it's really just the fact that we think Joe Burrow is going to have a mixed success and trying to get involved there. And that includes Chase Brown tacking on for in the target share and in the receiving department as well. The Broncos running backs are obviously so volatile, especially with Jaleel McLaughlin back, that I don't even want to dabble with Audric Estime personally. I'd rather wait out the Benson news, get in on Kamani Vidal. Honestly, for larger fields, if you want to try to get Haskins in there, if Dobbins is inactive, and get a touchdown on a 3-game slate, totally fine with the 2 if it allows you to get up to Jamar Chase. So that's just kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
Rich, thoughts as far as running backs? I've seen like people talking about Antonio Gibson with Ramondre Stevenson, losing a little bit and the fumble issues there, but that's kind of an issue for Gibson as well historically.
Yeah.
And who cares? The Patriots are just, they just want to go. They just want to hit the sim button on the season at this point. I don't want to speak for you as far as Chase Brown. By all means, if you got anything to add there, go for it. Then Kyron, and then of course there's a dip down. But what do you have as far as the running backs on this 3-gamer on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Kyron stands out the most. Big home favorite, soft defense. We've seen Stafford throw for fewer than 200 yards in 3 of the past 4 weeks because they have a sub 50% pass rate in 4 straight games. We've seen him rack up Kyron Williams. It is 31, 24 touches the past 3 games. We've seen Arizona. They just got mauled by Chuba Hubbard on Sunday. They also gave 200 yards to Zach Charbonnet 2 weeks ago. Seems like it's going to be a real heavy run script for the Rams and the way they've been operating the past month.
Last week too, against the Jets, like what was Stafford only threw 10 passes in the first half. They weren't even really trying to run. Maybe that was because they saw Quentin Williams scratched late before kickoff, but either way, they just leaned into Kyron.
Do we have a most ambitious running back choice here, Rich? It thins out really fast.
Yeah, it's probably like, Daigle said Kamani. He'd probably be the one.
Or Haskins.
Then whatever, because that's why it's all just nebulous after that. You can play whack-a-mole with Denver. You can take a shot on Gibson or Stevenson or an Arizona dude.
Yeah, because what are we really trying to do with that running back? Like, say it's a flex. We're trying to outscore Michael Wilson, Devon Vele. Like, we're trying to outscore those guys. And, of course, 1 touchdown could mean they probably score more points than one of those whack-a-mole individuals.
I'm seeing a lot of 2 tight end optimals for what it's worth. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean you got to force that, but
pretty interesting with a slate with only 1 tight end on it.
Yeah. It's just to make the help you get the stuff you actually want to get in, right?
No, I get you.
But it's not great, obviously. Let's jump to receiver,
and we'll get to what that does for Sunday.
Yeah. Well, the Sunday tight end slate is a disaster.
Well, Kelsey played Christmas. McBride's on this slate. Kittle and Laporte on Monday.
Who's left standing?
Kyle Pitts is on Sunday night.
We lost Britton Strange because of Josiah DeGuara. We're losing our favorites as well.
Jake Ferguson. I mean, like it's not.
Yeah.
We'll get there, but this slate, the way it's spread out, the tight ends has made it interesting because even on this particular Saturday slate, it's Trey McBride in a wide gap to where it's Hunter Henry and then like a bunch of possibles.
What about receiver, Rich? Talk to me about the wide receivers. There's more than one receiver we like, I assume.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I want to try to get to Jamar Chase, particularly in this game if I can. I mean, we've seen that Chase moves around. He plays 32% of his snaps in the slot. So if you're one of those gamers that's into like how much can he avoid Patrick Surtain, he will avoid him a good amount. Not that we're worried about like one-on-one matchups with Jamar Chase anyways, but we've seen really big games from wide receivers and from guys like Zay Flowers and Jerry Jeudy, who did a lot of damage moving around from Patrick Surtain and in those games. So we've also seen that Denver allows 9.3 yards per target to opposing lead wide receivers for as good as Patrick Surtain's been. That's 26th in the league. The one thing that's aided them is they don't give a lot of touchdowns to wide receivers. They've allowed 8 touchdowns to wide receivers all year. That's the fewest in the league. But I do think that there's an opportunity here for him to move around. If Denver wants to play a lot of man coverage, we'd see him break out. But Denver, we've seen them really reduce their rate of man coverage. And will they want to do that against the Bengals remains to be seen, but they've played their 3 lowest rates of man coverage the past 3 weeks they have of the season. So they've kind of shifted away from that as well. But yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase though, still for the upside. They're going for all these records. I want to see him cook.
He's a Triple Crown. He's still in line for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Puka is coming in as the most popular guy in our stuff right now at 47%. Harrison, another guy who just never gets there. And, oh my God, Harrison's too cheap. He's 5'7". Well, wait, he does nothing every time. Maybe he's not too cheap. But in theory, he's coming in at 33%, which to me just doesn't seem like great chalk. Just if we're going to call that chalk. Sutton at 33%, Chase 32, only because of salary. Higgins, they're saying he's going to give it a go. And it looks like, the reports are. I know he's dealing with a couple body parts, but he's likely to play. Daigle, your thoughts as far as receivers?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the field does and what happens with T. Higgins, because we do have a history of him having injuries and then returning and taking limited reps. Except this year, that hasn't really been the case. Like when he's been injured and then plays, he really plays through it as a wide receiver one. I have no idea if that's because he's in a contract year and he continues showing out. But either way now, in the 10 games him and Chase have played together, like they've been neck and neck there. T. Higgins has a 24.5% target share to Jamar Chase's 26.5%. So I'm really just kind of waiting on ownership there to see what happens. Because even if we think or get word or report or the field is playing it, is if T. Higgins is limited, we also know that Gesicki becomes their wide receiver too. So you're talking about like flexing a second tight end or just trying to get involved in a situation where someone's getting less play, like the pivot then, even if Higgins is active and we think he's going to be limited, Gesicki has a 19.5% target share whenever Higgins has not played this year. So we could also leverage that situation by playing Gesicki and the highest scoring total. So I'm kind of just waiting and taking it down to see what the field's going to do with T.
Is 31-year-old Cooper Kupp, is he kind of sort of somewhat dusty? Is he getting there? Is he showing signs, or it's just a small sample thing? Of course, Puka seems to clearly be separating, but how do we feel about Kupp, Daigle? Any Kupp?
Gosh, I'm just really worried about that game script. Like it's the time of the year where football's predictable. We saw this beginning on Monday. We saw this with all the Christmas games and Thursday night. And like the Ravens game opened at, I went to look at the line. I didn't get it at 3.5. It surged to nearly a touchdown favorite. And it was obvious because the Texans are not ready to play Super Bowl contenders. The Texans are one of the worst teams in the league, and yet they're getting the playoffs somehow. We just know what's going to happen in a lot of these games at that time of the year. And I'm really concerned about the Cardinals here. I genuinely think the Rams just run away with it. And if that's the case, like Cooper Kupp has now shown his floor in back-to-back games with Puka dominating him in terms of targets per route run. So I personally think I'm going to shy away from Cooper Kupp in this slate.
People love their teases. That feels like a good game to have in a tease. The Rams, they're 6.5-point favorites, right? Just basically have to win. And I think there's a chance they just blow them out. I like that call. Cheapest receiver that we have interest in. Rich, I know you try to make Pop Douglas happen several times this year.
He scored a touchdown last week, didn't he?
No, he got called back. He scored him 2 weeks
okay.
ago when I did play him.
I don't even know what day it is. Like it's all running together right now.
What do we like as far as our cheap flyer receiver, Josh Palmer? Mims is kind of sort of somewhat interesting. Rich, who do you want to sell us to kind of make stuff work as far as receivers?
Yeah, it's not a great slate for real cheap wide receivers is the problem. I mean, you can kind of talk yourself into Mims just because of the explosive plays have been there. He did also run a route on a season high 48% of the team dropbacks last week, and he's averaging over 4 yards per route run. But like this is the story of Marvin Mims his whole career, right? Like anytime he's gotten some opportunities, given his big plays, it's just that either Sean Payton hates this dude or he's like really just dumb like throughout the week. Like they just don't trust him. But anytime they actually give him the football, he's made big plays. He'd be like the one guy that actually has some upside though per touch, because like what are you going to do? Get to like Michael Wilson, like DeMarcus Robinson, any of the Patriots guys? It's just really, really hard. It's a really barren slate in terms of like these ancillary wide receivers, unless like Daigle has someone he really loves.
Marvin Mims would be it. But again, I'm just trying to get in on that game. Plus, like, yeah, it's the fact that all Marvin Mims does is have 40-yard plays. Like, that's all the dude does. So I will gladly take limited reps, especially on a shorter slate, because I know that's a kind of guy that can beat anyone else someone tries to run at me.
All right, Daigle. Tight ends. Trey McBride and everybody else.
Trey McBride and everyone else, yes. Hunter Henry, I think it's going to get too swamped in ownership. That's my fear with Hunter Henry. Still leads the team in target share, and Drake May's 10 full starts, a 19.7% target share. So clearly can get there just based on opportunity. But again, I'm a little bit worried that everyone's going to get there behind Trey McBride. So I may just find a way to play another wide receiver and save salary, like leave it on the table instead. Or, as we mentioned, Hassan Haskins or one of these touchdown or bust running backs.
I like the Gesicki take you had. Like if something happens to T, if he sort of is limited to some degree, I think he would step up. He's 3-1, 15% currently.
Yep.
And it's, what kind of sales splits do you need on this slate for,
Yeah.
I guess I'll throw a dart at this tight end. And they're basically betting if you're not playing McBride, hopefully McBride doesn't put like a 20 spot up there, right? That's essentially the bet.
I like Hunter Henry, but also I'm not really worried about Hunter Henry killing me, especially in what we consider to be a colder game, a lower scoring run first environment. I'm still convinced Drake May looks up and doesn't know whether it's Henry or Austin Hooper also downfield because Hooper continues getting so much usage. So yeah, I'm not really scared of Hunter Henry in a 3-game slate.
It is a revenge game for Hunter Henry, so I don't know if that affects things for you or not. Just now realizing
changes everything.
It does. The slate, if you listen really closely, you can actually hear it flipping on its head. Rich, are we in? Are we out on McBride? Maybe just a flat out punt. Your favorite punt as far as tight ends?
No, I think you just play McBride. I think he could easily have more than all the other tight ends combined on this slate. And he's not hard to put in. I built a couple lineups and he's not hard to play with other good players. So I think McBride's someone you actually just 100%.
Okay. So if you had 100% one player, McBride or Brown, I know this is.
I would do McBride.
Okay. The player is chasing down Brown
because I actually like Kyren more than Brown.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, I want both, but you can play both. I mean, I on both sides, I just built lineups with Kyren and McBride and Chase Brown, and you still get guys like Ladd McConkey, and depending, you can get Burrow. And if you want to even play a guy like I said, Drake May, then you can get the Jamar Chase. It's just not a slate that's really restrictive because there's not a lot. It's just not a deep player pool of good players.
I'm looking at a lineup right now that has Kyren, Chase Brown, Puka, and McBride. It also has a second tight end, and there's some other nonsense in there. But you can do that if you want to do that.
The Cardinals' offensive line is the key there. Like the fact that, like Rich said, the fact they're missing 2 starters, I'm just so worried about them.
Would McBride be asked to stay in the block anymore, or is that not a thing he would have to worry about for him?
I don't think so. He has the best usage in terms of route participation, target share, target per route run rate. He's up there right alongside Brock Bowers in basically every metric. He just can't score touchdowns.
Yeah. And I guess you can make the counter argument, maybe 5-yard outs is got to get rid of the ball quickly. And maybe that's McBride will actually thrive with the absence of a solid offensive line. Maybe. I don't know if you want to tell yourself that story. But, let's go ahead and give our favorite game stack or just favorite stack in general, Rich, as far as this 3-gamer. We'll move on and talk about the main slate in a second. But the people love their stacks. If you want to do a game stack, by all means, a mini, what is the route you want to take?
Yeah, I mean, Bengals, Broncos is the best, game environment and get, kind of upside. Obviously, people are there. I do like just the Kyren McBride is pretty easy to get there too. Is the combo.
Yeah, Daigle.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get to 6 or 7 players from Broncos Bengals. That includes Marvin Mims, sprinkling in someone else like Vele. Maybe I pivot off Higgins for Cortland Sutton and then put Gesicki in the flex instead. But I'm gonna try to get unique around that game in particular with a cheap Chargers running back.
So Burrow, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, Gesicki, Sutton. Okay.
I think to get the Chase similar to the May price point, and May and Rich also likes May for on paper matchups, but you do save 1,000 going down the Knicks. His rushing floor has wavered. We did get a couple carries over 5 this couple weeks ago. So I think I'm willing to save the 1,000, go down to Knicks. But again, I'm going to tinker with it a little bit more ahead of Saturday.
How many receivers are you willing to play without playing their quarterback? I guess I don't. When you said so many, I assume Burrow. But yeah, Knicks is fine. But now that I'm thinking about it, would you could play Chase and Gesicki without Burrow, but you can't. I don't want to say can't. 3-game slate. But I wouldn't play Chase, Higgins, Gesicki without playing Burrow. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. Again, 2 and 3-game slates kind of remove the rules from that. We're just trying to soak up the production in general, especially when everyone else around them sucks. So not too worried about it. It may just be a floor slate, especially if the Cardinals guys can't get there. But yeah, it makes more sense, in my opinion, to play Knicks just because those receivers have a much tougher time of production without getting that passing touchdown.
And Knicks, Sutton, Mims, you get Chase Brown, Jamar Chase. You can make that work.
Mhm.
And like, you get another game. It's just you can get 2 games that are snooze fests. You can only get 1. None of that stuff will be surprising. Certainly this time of year, the total for Chargers and Pats 42.5. That game could certainly be quiet. Wouldn't be shocking. Okay. Anything else here, Rich, as far as the Saturday slate?
No.
All right. I think we gave the people enough on Saturday. John, you got anything else? We're good to go, right?
I think we touched on everything for Saturday.
Okay. The main slate on FanDuel. FanDuel does include the Sunday night game, which is Atlanta at Washington, 47.5 total. We do have a couple big totals on the board, which is Green Bay, Minnesota, Carolina, Tampa Bay, both in the 48-ish. Jets, Buffalo next at 46.5. But beyond that, we'll talk about our favorite plays position by position. There are 5 games, 5 of the 8 on DK that have a total of 40 or less, which, yay, get excited. Which is why, in part, John, the Carolina Panthers are our lead story. The Carolina Panthers taking on Tampa Bay, 48.5 as a total. Tampa's an 8-point favorite here. Bucks looking like one of the best offenses on the week. Mike Evans still trying to get his 1,000 yards. Tampa still fighting for playoff implications. Start wherever you want to start as far as the Panthers and the Bucks.
I imagine everyone will come into the week focusing on the Bucks side of the ball, perhaps playing it through Baker Mayfield or at least the passing offense. So I'll go ahead and start there. I'm a little bit concerned if you go down the Panthers injury report. They've been banged up on defense all year long, but it just keeps getting so much worse, including in their offensive line. J.C. Horn also not going to be available, most likely. He's doubtful to play Mike Evans. So it is a little bit concerning that maybe we don't get any pushback from the Panthers in this game. Even so, though, last week, Baker Mayfield under duress, sacked 4 times, 1 interception and a fumble, but still over 300 yards. He's now been a top 7 quarterback for fantasy and 9 out of 11 starts that he's made with Mike Evans. And this is an entirely different matchup. Whereas, like, when the Cowboys fall apart, they still create pressure with everyone, including Micah Parsons. The Panthers are dead last in creating pressure, so we do not expect Baker Mayfield to really struggle this time around. And Baker Mayfield leads the league with 32 touchdowns from a clean pocket. So we just think it's going to be a easy environment. Not to mention Bucky Irving, I imagine, will be chalk in this slate, given the running back options and his salary, since he should be closer to mid 7Ks, 8Ks probably after last week. And if that's the case, you could still play him, obviously, with Baker. You can tack on some other cheap options if you want to play Evans, Jalen McMillan, Payne Durham, given the tight end slate that it is without Cade Otton. So sure, I think Baker Mayfield's kind of the starting point of the slate.
I need to know what a Payne Durham is. Like, I know he played last week, and he's one of those tight ends that, like, okay, but it's basically he's not Bowers, right? Just to say not Bowers,
Not Bowers.
tight end
It's not
playing
Bowers.
for Tampa Bay.
No one. I have not seen anyone compare him. I don't think Player Profiler has Brock Bowers as his comp.
I'm gonna check now.
He looks like a Payne Durham as well.
Yes.
That doesn't sound like a compliment.
It's not, but he's a guy who gets open underneath. He's just a big, bulky guy with very little athleticism who did separate, like he earned targets.
He has a spectacular mustache at least on his profiler picture.
He looks like Payne Durham.
His his comp, by the way, Jack Doyle. Get excited.
That tracks.
Sure. Yeah.
Rich, what do you got as far as the Tampa Bay offense? Are we going to see, Bucky get a little bit more?
You already seen it.
Well, even more because White goofed. He had that big fumble last game. I guess he's sort of like their.
I mean, that was a great defensive
path.
play. Like, let's not act like Rachaad White made like this like great faux pas. That was like the Cowboys had 2 of the best defensive takeaways that we've seen all season. The Jordan Lewis interception on the Jalen McMillan catch in the end zone, and then that takeaway by Deron Bland. Like, those are incredible. Those are incredible defensive plays.
Mike McCarthy's coming back 100% because the team is still playing for him.
But Chris Collinsworth lost his mind, by the way. He was in the zone, Collinsworth. I don't know if you guys had the volume up for him.
But I mean, we had already seen it up until that point. I mean, he had a season high 84% of the backfield runs in that game. Like, Rachaad White was literally just a long down and distance passing back in the game. He had like 3 rushing attempts. So
Yeah.
we're going to see Bucky Irving. The way that Baker doesn't get there is Bucky Irving, because the Buccaneers are the Panthers haven't allowed more than 235 passing yards in a game over the past 5 weeks. And that includes Baker Mayfield in a game that was actually competitive because their run defense is terrible. His teams just run all over them.
Yeah.
So like that's the avenue. If Baker doesn't get there, that means Bucky Irving went just nuts. And he's going to be popular for a reason. He's underpriced again. But yeah, it's just a dream spot. He's a home favorite with a 20.8 team total, over a touchdown against the worst rushing defense in the league. We're like, what do we need to really say about it?
He's not even on the injury report as well for the first time, I believe, since a couple weeks before their bye. Like, it's been months since he's not been on the injury report.
Neither is Mike Evans, for what it's worth. It just came through. No Mike Evans with his hamstring. He's off the injury report as well. Let's see, Drake London not on the injury report. Chuba with his knee expected to play, as well as Leggett with his hip and his wrist. Those are the updates as of 5-10 minutes ago or so. So Bucky looks amazing. Bucky
what was Jamel Dean?
I don't have that. I have Otten officially rolled out in case you guys missed that.
Yeah, we saw that. Yeah, I thought you were looking at like the actual the team, like the reports.
I was looking at the underdog who they didn't dig into Jamel Dean. They didn't give me that one.
It's relevant because when Jamel Dean has played with Zion McCollum, like they have been a complete slot funnel. They've been awesome against outside wide receivers when those two guys have played and pushed stuff to the slot.
Jamel Dean was removed from the injury report.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it sets up for another spot for just Adam Thielen to be the cleanest run back of clean run backs you could have.
Talk about Thielen in the Carolina offense. I guess Chuba in the conversation as well, Rich.
Yeah, I'm not going to play Hubbard for sure. But you look at Adam Thielen, he's had double-digit fantasy points in every game since he's come back. 24% of team targets, over 2 yards per out run. Talked about Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum when they play. They push stuff to the slot. Bucks are 21st in points allowed to slot receivers. Thielen had 8 of 10 for 99 and a touchdown. These teams played 7 for 90 and a touchdown came from the slot. He also had a second touchdown that should have counted that for some reason didn't count. I don't even know why it didn't count. I don't think we've ever really gotten clarity why it was not rolled a touchdown, but yeah, he's a pretty clean run back. I'm going to avoid Hubbard just because he's last Sunday was the first time he's even run for over 4 yards per carry in a game since week 10, and it came against Arizona. I don't think that this team is really you guys playing for volume and hope you get in the box. But I don't think it's a particularly good spot as like a 8-point road underdog against a team that they didn't really run effectively on the first time these teams played.
Is he kind of out of gas at this point? It seems like
no. Look at last week. I mean, he was great. The matchup lined up, but
yeah. And are we going to get rug pulled at some point? Like, why would they keep running him out there with so many reps?
You're the king of this, Dean. This is like the king of your narrative. Like, you love this.
They signed him for next season. Like,
but this stuff doesn't happen, man. This stuff doesn't happen
until it does. That's what a rug pull is.
It's true.
If we see Mike Boone this week, I would imagine it's because the Bucks are out by 30 points, which then would be a Bucky Irving slate.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm always like a worrier too, which you shouldn't be, right? Yeah, especially for tournaments. It's like, go for it, right?
I mean, these guys are football players, man.
They all want to play for sure. They want to play, but you extended the guy in the middle of the season, and James Conner the same sort of deal, and why beat the guy up going into the, especially with nowhere to go. But we haven't quite seen it just yet, and maybe we see it next week, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But always keep an eye on the beats, but you're probably right. I'm worrying about nothing here, Rich.
No, look at Brees Hall last week. We'll be talking about Brees Hall, but look at Brees Hall last week.
Yeah.
Same stuff, man. Same stuff.
Bryce Young, any interest as far as a cheap quarterback? Is he how many lineups do we have to make until we say, let's make a Bryce Young lineup? Rich, you're talking about like in Thielen. Would we pair him with Bryce or not necessary?
You can, because of just the price where he's at. I think he's 56 on DK. Is that right?
7-1 on FanDuel.
And yeah, that he's a lot more palatable on DraftKings. The bummer is, though, you're probably not getting the passing bonus with Bryce. Even as good as he's been, like, you're just not getting a lot of passing production. Last week was the first time he threw multiple passing touchdowns in a game since the Denver game. And you are getting some rushing. That's what you like about him. Over his past 6 starts, only Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts have a higher scramble rate than Bryce Young. and you're going to get a lot of blitzes from the Bucs and chances to run. That's what's kind of been getting him there. But the price is good enough, and I think you're going to have enough dropbacks that if this game gets there, I think Bryce Young help push it.
Daigle, your thoughts as far as Carolina? Anything else as far as this game?
Yeah, the issue for Bryce is really in double stacking because even with Xavier Lee get questionable, looks like he's still probably going to play. It's just tough to get there with double stacks for him. We can go to Thielen, as we talked about, but then a couple weeks ago, remember, we discussed how Jalen Coker going for over 100 yards, 73% of his receiving yards in that game was due to a coverage mishap. So it wasn't even like something he did. He just got open downfield. And so it's just tough to trust anyone else. The Panthers run a little more 2 tight end sets last week with both Jatavian Sanders and Tommy Trimble as well. So it thins it out. It makes it so much tougher. So you would be playing Bryce for that 5.9 rushing points he's added in his last 6 starts.
Yeah, you just wouldn't double stack him.
Yeah, which is not fun, especially on an 8-game slate.
The cheapies, as far as cheap receivers, this has been a question all season long. And Carolina feels like at least for half the season, we're talking about like David Moore or Jalen Coker. Legette's expected to play for what it's worth.
Yeah.
You also got Njoku out, by the way. That just came through for Cleveland, as well as Tillman.
DTR in the rain without Njoku. What could go wrong?
Is there anything worse than fantasy championship weekend? Like, we go through 16 weeks of grinding on a routine schedule, and then you get the championship week, and it's the most anticlimactic bullshit ever. It's like you have to check your lineup every 2 hours of the day just to make sure everyone's healthy and available. You can't even remember what days the games are. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
What's the solution?
I mean, to throw it, they're going to have to throw in a second bye week. We're going to get more games. That's not even good because everyone's still injured in December. December football's the worst.
My thing is after this week, there's been no more evidence that like the NFL product is hurt by the short rest for teams. Mm-hmm. Like they have to find a way to make it so the teams that play on Thursday or Wednesday, if they want to do these games, don't play on Sunday the week before. Like they need to find a way where it's that team every Thursday night game comes with teams coming off a bye or something. Like this is the second time in 3 weeks we had Thursday night game without even a touchdown. Like it's a terrible product.
Yeah.
The short slate football has been a terrible product, and they're not going to get rid of it because of money. So the solution would be to like make sure these teams are coming off of rest and not playing on 3 days of trying to wing together these guys getting their bodies back in shape and trying to put a game plan together.
KC played 3 games in 11 days, something like that, which is just maybe it was.
And
12.
It's not that, and you can always point and say, well, what about the Ravens and Chiefs? And it's like, yeah, it's just divide between the haves and have-nots, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's what it is.
I was also asking for like fantasy wise, like what's the solution? How do you crown fantasy champions? Because it is kind of dumb that somebody's going to get crowned. Whoever's still standing as far as. And you can't plan for this stuff. You can't plan for 80% of it. You can plan for it to some degree. And I know people for best ball like to say, well, look how juicy this matchup is week 17. And you have no idea who's going to be left standing in week 17. You can guess. But I always thought cumulative points is like, it's not as sexy as like a matchup head to head. But that seems like the most fair.
Those two games on Wednesday were played. CeeDee Lamb doesn't get ruled out till Thursday. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah, and you probably possibly had someone on your bench you could have used, right? All right. There's our little soapbox for this for this episode. Anything else as far as Carolina and Tampa? I think we're moving on, right, boys?
Well, you got like I said, Otten's out, so you got McMillan.
Yeah,
but
and his price, his price is going up. Baker, we're showing because usually we don't even have projections. ETR showing Baker with one of the highest ceilings in this slate. It's only 16 quarterbacks. A lot of them are bad, but again, I still think you can, if you get there, you can tack on Baker with Bucky Irving just for salary-based purposes to soak up a team's offensive touchdowns as a whole. It feels like a 2-game slate. Honestly, we're going to talk about some positional plays, but we're really trying to box out one of these games and hope the other fails. The other one that we're about to talk about, and I don't know how this one fails, honestly.
Yeah, it'd be easy if Bucks Panthers fails, no one's going to blink.
I think also there's some weather concerns perhaps for Carolina and Tampa Bay as well. Whereas we're not going to get that indoors in Minnesota.
So this is green yellow on a Friday afternoon. It just says scattered showers possible. Of course, again, this stuff will be updated. As of right now, orange in Buffalo, rain is likely with potential for heavy rain. Orange in Cleveland, rain likely, potential for heavy rain exists. Also, the inability to throw the ball for Cleveland, probably not great either. And Washington, the Sunday night game for FanDuel, rain likely, could potentially be heavy rain. All three of those games are orange, but like scattered showers possible for the Giants, for the Jags, for Tampa, for Philly. So, and for Cincinnati for Saturday. It's just all over I feel like we haven't had really weather as a big factor most of the season. I know they had that Jameis game, but mostly that's not a wind. The wind thing. Wind is the biggest deal, but unless it's like crazy heavy rain. But this feels like
that Challengers wind.
But was it real? Was it actually real? That's what we'll discuss later on.
I think we know the answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, McMillan looks pretty good. I didn't mean to pass by. And McMillan looks like an interesting cheapie. He's been solid of late. And as far as big spend receivers, how much are we prioritizing Mike Evans? How much can we prioritize him? Is he one of our favorites? Is he on the podium? Is he on the fringe? He's on the podium.
He's a good one.
Yeah, I like it. I like that call a lot. Okay, the second game we're going to talk about, I don't know how it's going to fail. Let's talk about how it may fail or how it may thrive. We're in a dome. One game where we don't have to worry about weather. We're in Minnesota. 48.5 is the total. Packers are in Minneapolis. Yeah, it's pretty high. It's tight. 48.5 is the total. So it looks like one of the best options on the board. Some competent offenses as well. Rich, start wherever you want to start with the Packers and Minnesota.
Yeah, I feel the only way this game fails is if you get a couple like early Sam Darnold turnovers and the Packers like get out to a lead and they can do their thing that they've been doing where they're just able to control the clock and run the football. But other than that, like this game has all the pieces you want, inside, high total, division matchup, two good teams. I don't think you could take a lot what happened in week 4 away from this game because Jordan Love was coming off of that 2-week layoff. They got down big. It ended up being just like a really weird game script game. The Packers have found their identity since then. But are the Vikings going to be a team that can kind of push them out of what they've been doing since the bye, where they literally have the second to lowest dropback rate in the NFL? This is a team that has been a little bit softer against the run this past month, but it is still a team that's been really good for the bulk of the season. So really quite excited to see that cat and mouse game. But this game has like everything that from a top-down stance we look for. It's star power. It's got cheap pieces. It's got expensive pieces. It's got kind of everything we want to build around.
Daigle?
Yeah, my take on it all week is that we know what the Packers want to do. As they've shown us in 6 games out of their bye, they've dropped to 24th in pass attempts per game, 31st in pass rate over expectation, 28th in drop back rates. Like they want to lean into Josh Jacobs and all their running backs, if you include that Monday night disaster at home against the Saints. But I just don't think you can in this spot. That's the issue. Like the Vikings are second in yards per carry this year, allowed to running backs, 4th in yards after contact or yards before contact per attempt. So they don't even give breathing room to opposing running backs. They tackle you like right after you get the ball. So I just don't think you can run successfully against them. Thus, I feel like it's going to
except
push
for the Falcons.
Yeah, well, except for Bijan. So I think you can.
And James Conner.
It'll force Jordan Love through the air, Rich, because Love has still been good in the out of the bye. He just hadn't had the volume. 9.2 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. So yeah, I still like to play it through Jordan Love.
So the natural follow-up question is, and I don't know how you answer. Okay, who do I pair with Love? Do you like Reed? Do you like Dobbs? Do you like Watson? Wicks? We try to make Wicks happen. Another terrible, I shouldn't say terrible tight end, usable tight end, I suppose, in Kraft, just not named. Oh God, who's the good tight end? I'm getting confused what slate we're on now. Not named Bowers.
TJ Hawkinson?
Yeah. Okay, on the other side, yeah, I guess Hawkinson's kind of in the middle, right? He's like not. Yeah, he's kind of the middle, the next guy up on this slate. But your favorite pairing with Love is who?
And I don't want to disregard playing Sam Darnold. Still very open to Darnold, especially because you know where the double stacks go. But yeah, Jordan Love, it's a little more complicated. However, if Christian Watson doesn't play, it does condense the target tree quite a bit. Dontavian Wicks, always the cheap option that we can look forward to getting pissed at. again, but we have 2 starts for Christian Watson, or Christian Watson was injured in, and Wicks has 28 and 24% target shares in those contests. Jaden Reed has been targeted on 31% of his routes, a team high mark, with Christian Watson off the field from Jordan Love this year. So that's kind of where I lean towards. Dobbs, of course, can pop up. A couple touchdowns last week, even though it was just a 19.5% target share. He's going to lead the team in routes run, as he usually does. But I think my personal 2 favorites are Reed and Wicks.
You got to take the Hribar as far as favorite Green Bay receiver?
Yeah, I like Jaden Reed the most. Obviously, you need the game environment for Jaden Reed because he plays in 3 wide receiver sets to kind of open up. But if you do get that, his upside is pretty high in this game. He's been kind of the guy that they've used in these matchups too, because the Vikings weaker against slot receivers. They play a lot of cover 2. We've seen that Reed leads the team in targets per out run against cover 2. He leads the team in rate against zone coverage. He also tie that into the 2 Brian Flores games, 7 for 139 and 1, 6 for 89 and 2. He's kind of the guy that's gotten over in this individual matchup. So I do like Reed. You just need the right game environment, but you're already betting on that if you're playing Jordan Love.
Yeah.
I like
Or
the
Darnold.
Minnesota side because it's a little bit cleaner. I just think it's a little bit cleaner, and you guys kind of alluded to it. Of course, you got to pay for it as well with Jefferson, the rise of Addison. Hawkinson as well looks pretty spectacular. Again, it's going to be a little bit more costly. Darnold is kind of sort of somewhat chalky, I think, at this point. But I prefer that route in this game. Not going to poo-poo Love, but I like the Minnesota side, Rich. If we're doing that, I mean, we like Jefferson, I imagine. We like Addison. Dollar for dollar, you have a preference. Is there anything in the matchups that shows that one leans better? Or just like you always play Jefferson, matchup proof, yada, yada?
Yeah, I mean, he always has high stuff just because his usage is so high. He's now taking the lead in target share in the NFL. Great against cover 3, which the Packers run a lot. I mean, Packers also another one of this matchups like we talked about with Seattle last week. They have pretty wide splits against play action and non-play action passes this season. They are 6th in the league in yards per pass attempt, a lot of non-play action passes. They go to 23rd. We saw that kind of get over and be kind of the way out for Seattle last week. In this game, in the game against Seattle, Darnold was 8 of 11, 11.3 yards per pass attempt when they used play action against Seattle. He only completed 58% of his passes for 5 yards per pass attempt on non-play action passes because that was kind of like where that matchup kind of pointed to. So we have something similar here. So that does keep Addison back, in play because he does have like the high target rate and he leads the team in touchdowns off of play action passes. He did have one when these teams played earlier in the year as well. And I don't mind Hawkinson on this particular slate because the context of the tight end and because you just want pieces of this game. I think like you play guys in the game environment. If you don't play Bowers and you can't play Bowers, it's wide open. You've got both Tucker Kraft and TJ Hawkinson who are affordable and they're in a potentially just good game environments. And you let that just kind of be the catalyst over the guys like probably Payne Durham, or if people are going to go back to Okonkwo again. I like both these guys more than I like those guys for those reasons.
Daigle, Minnesota?
Yeah, Rich pretty much alluded to. It seems like Aaron Jones is going to be chalk as well. I don't think I'd play him with Darnold. That's more of a similar to how people are probably viewing Darnold doubles, run it back with Josh Jacobs, maybe a cheap receiver. I would probably play Love with Aaron Jones instead, hoping to soak up those touchdowns. Maybe one of, not both, of the Vikings wide receivers too. It's a tough spot for Aaron Jones, but in these types of big games all year long, they've shown, especially if they keep it close, like they lie about the usage and wanting to relieve him, to keep him healthy for the postseason. It's going to be all Aaron Jones, no Cam Akers. And at least we saw Zach Charbonnet. Again, you're crossing your fingers because it's a tough matchup on paper, but at least we saw like Zach Charbonnet explode for a long touchdown run a couple weeks ago against the Packers. That's kind of what you're hoping for here, just to grind it out with Aaron Jones. So I think that's the way I would play it.
A peek at our ownership. We have Achane at 32, Hubbard 30, Bucky 26, Jones 25, 26. So it's pretty condensed with those 4. And then there's Saquon. That's just a price thing, obviously, at 20%. Anything else here as far as Green Bay and Minnesota, or shall we move on?
A good game. Hopefully it's good. I mean, I think this game looks hot. I selfishly do want the Vikings to win this game because I want that Lions-Vikings game to be for everything next week.
Is that on the main slate, or is that like Sunday night? Or
I would imagine if the Vikings win and the Lions win on Monday, that game will be the Sunday night game
100%.
because it'll be for the number 1 seed versus the number 5 seed. And if the Vikings lose this game, we're gonna get like Seahawks Rams.
Oh no, I've had enough
for
of the Seahawks.
For the NFC West. Yeah,
No
I think those are the
Seahawks.
2 choices though. But I selfishly want to see Lions Vikings rematch for the number 1 seed. I selfishly want to see that.
All right, let's run it back and give our favorite plays position by position. Before we do that, do you want to mention Splash? Shout out Splash. If you have not signed up at Splash Sports just yet, now is the time. Got a promo code for you, Roto10. Roto10, when you play $100 in quick picks on Splash, you'll get another $50. Also here at RotoGrinders, we have a special for Combo Lite. We want you to have a massive holiday takedown, still the holidays. So we're taking $10 off your first month of Combo Lite. That means you get access to our SimLabs lineup, building tool, and content from some of your favorite DFS analysts. It's just $19.99 for your first month. There you go. Score big when it takes something down. You hear us talking about SimLabs or different versions of it. Get access to the Sims for $19 and change. And I believe that's for all the 4 major sports, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Okay, let's run it back. Whatever is left as far as our favorite quarterbacks. Rich, you're going to go first. Quarterback-wise, who's still on the board?
And you could take
Richardson. Oh, go ahead, John.
You could take as much as you want, Rich, because I think I'm living in the environments we talked about. I really don't have many quarterbacks at all.
Yep, my 4 because now that we're doing this on Friday, I've already written up my DFS plays, and I have the quarterbacks we talked about: Baker, Darnold, Love, and then the other one I have is Jaden Daniels on FanDuel only, obviously, who is no trouble to fit into lineups over there. So pretty clean quarterback slate.
And we touched on this before the show started. TJ's telling us, producer TJ's throwing it up on the screen. He's trying to force us Mac Jones one more time. Run it back. Why not? Richardson doesn't seem like he's going to play. We'll see. He hasn't practiced for Indy, so keep an eye on that, I suppose. If he plays, I thought it was a pretty interesting play against those horrific Giants. But
I think he was the cash game play if he was playing. So
yeah,
that would allow us to pivot to Jonathan Taylor in an equally good spot.
Yeah, I'm not as interested in Flacco as I would be Richardson.
Isn't it funny how that worked? Because I remember like a month or 2 ago, we were like, "Oh man, I would love to get Flacco in this game." We're like bummed that Richardson's in it. I can't remember what game it was.
It's always different. They actually average like a yard, almost a full yard and a half per play less with Flacco in this year than Richardson.
Okay.
Interesting. And it's just what's the upside for Flacco in this game against the Giants? Like you want Flacco in the hair on fire environment. You want
trying to catch up.
We want Flacco throwing 40 passes. We don't want Flacco throwing 22 passes against Drew Lock.
You don't want game manager Flacco.
Yeah. I mean, you can play Josh Downs at his price because Josh Downs is like, we know the splits with Josh Downs where Flacco's targeted him like 35% of the time. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. 6% of his routes. So you can play Downs at his price because I think Downs has fallen off in terms of price. What is he on DraftKings even? I haven't even looked since they announced him out. But you can get to him, but like
4.8 on DraftKings.
Yeah, 4.8. Josh Downs is totally in play. But like, how many pass attempts are you expecting Flacco to have against the Giants?
Yeah,
24.
He's not running.
Yeah, I mean, you never really know how this stuff goes, but you kind of know with the Giants, right?
I mean, this Giants team, like Daigle said today, like we do know like where the Giants are right now.
They are. It's bad. Are they the worst team in the league?
They have the number.
They are. They have the 1 seed.
Yeah,
right?
they have the number 1 pick right now.
Number 1 pick.
Well, like sometimes there's variance and stuff.
Yeah,
but I think they are the worst, right? I think they are the worst team.
I think so.
Well, they're just not getting better either. That's the thing. At least Bryce Young is improving. I still question like drafting a quarterback next year, but Bryce Young is getting better. The Jaguars are hanging around and have hope because they have Brian Thomas still getting the ball from Mac Jones. The Giants, like their game plan is literally 13 targets and hoping that Neighbors catches a touchdown. That's it.
And everything is still bad for the Giants that like has been bad since like since I guess Dayball's tenure in Jones. Like they have no DBs, the offensive line sucks, and the quarterback's bad.
Yeah.
I never watched the Hard Knocks with the Giants and their front office. That's probably a spectacular watch, and maybe even retrospect. Did you guys watch that? Like I saw the scene of like they were talking about. Are you not interested in Hard Knocks at all in any capacity?
No, I don't think it's very good.
So this is my take as well. They ruined Hard Knocks.
Of course.
Hard Knocks got less fun whenever John Gruden and the Raiders had it, because Gruden warned everyone about the cameras in every room before they entered, and that's why they didn't give away anything. And I swear, since
you don't
then,
see anything.
and since then they have not unveiled anything. In fact, the Giants one, I believe, at least I was told, the Giants one was so inclusive, like there was too much, like Joe Shane obviously said far too much, that I think they may do away with it next year too. Like no team will allow them in.
Well, there was that clip where they were talking about regretting just kind of screwing up different things, and I can't imagine like Barkley going to our biggest rival in Philadelphia, and fast forward,
the clips were funny because Mara looked so sad. Like, why no Saquon? But my biggest thing at Hard Knocks, but no pun to knock on it, it's like is that they just show too much stuff that doesn't matter. Like they're always like focused on like some terrible like 6-string linebacker and like I don't care. I don't care.
They're giving you the story. They're giving you the fringe players that they're all interesting, and
it's like a fake peek behind the curtain.
That
nothing will ever trump the Baltimore, like with Saragusa and Ray Lewis. That was like the one. I think when people think of, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm old enough that I remember the Baltimore one, and a lot of characters on that team, of course. When Baltimore went 2003, I want to say with Billick. That's not about right.
Is Rich Hribar still doing the voice, the narration?
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's just an impressive production, if nothing else. The turnover.
It is the production is fine.
Hundreds of hours,
man. HBO and the NFL paired together. Like they're gonna cook.
I think it's still Lee.
It's just boring.
It's still the fixer.
This is why none of us ever agrees on movies, because Dean and Rob will be like, the production value of this, it's incredible. You got to check out the production value. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, but it's boring.
There's hundreds of hours of film, and they give you 4 or 5 different stories in like 55 minutes. You know how hard that is to do? But fair enough. We'll agree to disagree.
The coolest thing Hard Knocks ever did is when that dude flew that drone through the Cowboys whole facility.
Yes, that was really impressive. That was spectacular. Okay, we can agree on that and move on. John, any running backs? There should be some running backs we still like. Yeah, we got a pool of players we haven't talked about just yet.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. I was hoping Anthony Richardson played because it seemed like Jonathan Taylor was the perfect pivot. You could still play Jonathan Taylor. It's been a bend but don't break, oddly, defense for the Giants without Dexter Lawrence up the gut. But still, you got 67 yards, over 4 yards per carry from both Derrick Henry and last week. Bijan Robinson scores 2 touchdowns, still gets there in the end with 94 rushing yards. So yeah, I don't mind going back to Jonathan Taylor. That's pretty easy in a favorable game script. We talked about him last week, but we're going to run it back. It's such a low total. It's a little bit scarier, but maybe this is, and this takes a leap of faith, by the way, maybe it is another game where they lean back into Tajay Spears again. It took garbage time. It was on the fourth quarter in the second half. But again, if like a player like that, you're crossing your fingers and hoping that the game script maybe gets it a little bit out of hands, and you're really just spending down for a lottery ticket. I think there's a chance there he would look so good that maybe he does again, gets more touches here. So I don't mind spending down for Tajay Spears yet again. And then Rich already alluded to it, but Bree Hall, we did see with Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis banged up, the Jets went right back to Bree Hall as practically their every touch running back. And with the Bills still allowing, that's how they're getting smoked. So top 5 in yards per carry allowed to opposing running backs. Ramondre Stevenson, even last week, over 5 yards per carry. Again, that's how the Patriots pushed the ball down the field, was through their running backs. Then yes, Bree Hall seems like a sneaky one to target here.
All right, Rich, who was left for you?
No one. Bree Hall would be I think because you look at the context of this slate outside of Bucky Irving, but the most expensive running backs, the 3 most expensive running backs on the slate are Saquon, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Taylor. None of those guys catch a lot of passes. So if you can just avoid the huge run out of them getting the 100-yard bonus or scoring multiple touchdowns on the ground, you have the slate is relatively wide open for these combo backs like Bree Hall and Devin Achane to really run away with the slate and Bucky Irving. And you can also play one of those guys with Bree Hall where he's priced at, especially on DraftKings, where you're getting those catch points too. But I think the way the slate shakes out, it's going to push some ownership to some guys that maybe shouldn't have as high ownership, like Saquon and Josh Jacobs. Think about this: Saquon projecting right now to be 20% and on the slate ownership because of the way the player is available, the player pool that's available. He was sub 5% against the freaking Commanders last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so the slate dynamics are also always in play with these types of things, and that's why like a combo back like Bree Hall particularly stands out on the slate.
We're assuming that Pickett's in, and I assume that means the tush push goes away. So you got to give something more. No, Barkley, how he gets there is like, don't you score from outside the one. If you get taken to the 1 yard line, we're in a lot of trouble. And that threat, I don't think is there. Have they tush pushed with Pickett? I don't think so. Is that a thing they're going to do? I don't know. Also, the records. Do they care about 2,000 yards? Do they care about him taking down Dickerson's record?
I don't think he's going to get Dickerson's record, but 2,000 yards is well within grasp still.
Is it like 250 or 260 to take down Dickerson, I believe, which is – and a lot of it, like, who knows what happens next week.
The problem is if they win this week.
Yeah.
Because if they win the division. If they win, they win the division this week.
They are currently at 98% chance to win the division, and they got to win one of these two games, and next week is at home versus the Giants, and that's – we already talked about. Like, even
but if they win this game, how much do you chase a record with Saquon Barkley in Week 18?
We'll get there when we get there, but yeah. I think they maybe 2,000 and that's that, or maybe
that's my thought is they get him. I think Dickerson, the way that this is kind of played out the last couple of weeks, probably is like it's probably a longer shot that he gets Dickerson, but I do think 2,000 is a big deal. And that's well within grasp.
And there's just no way they let Kenny Pickett decide that kind of outcome for them in this game. Like, that dude came off the bench and had 4 sacks and 2 turnovers. It's like there's just no way they put the ball in his hand instead of Saquon's here.
He can get
but
to
the thing is, Saquon was terrible when Kenny Pickett came in.
Yes,
as well.
He wasn't even in winning lineups last week. Like, he didn't separate himself.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Mostly because Achane went into the end zone smiling and refused to slide. Yeah,
Jonathan Taylor was the dude that
JT also. Yeah,
and James
no receptions. He had no catches last week. Just one target, 150 yards and 2 tutties, and still doesn't really necessarily make himself a must play.
That Achane touchdown was still incredible. Just like, you literally, the game's over if you slide, and he had the biggest grin on his face. Did not care at all. He saw glory the whole 50 yards.
Love it.
What do you do, Daigle? Are you going to take a knee at the one, or are you going to go into the end zone and celebrate?
I'm not going down. Of course, I'm not going down.
Yeah,
it's been forever since the Dolphins have had a 10-yard run, let alone a 50-yard run. So sure, yeah, they don't get many of those in Miami.
Who was the Dolphins running back that had a walk-off touchdown in the playoffs against the Colts? There it is. That was popping up in my head. Lamar Smith, right?
I'm pretty sure it was Lamar Smith.
Yeah. This is like 25 years ago or something like that. It was a while ago, but that just popped up in my head for some reason. This wasn't a walk-off, obviously. Achane just slide and the game's over, but get yourself a touchdown. Okay. Receivers.
I ain't mad at him.
No, of course not. I mean, you bet the game and if it burns you, then all of a sudden, but that's what you signed up for. You bought the ticket. You're signing up for those potential outcomes. Who's leading as far as receivers? Who wants receivers first? I forget who I started with first last time.
You started with me, so go ahead, Rich.
I was looking up that it was Lamar Smith. He had 40 carries in that game. 40 carries. 209 yards.
It's like Larry Johnson days.
Yeah, no, yeah, 40 rushing attempts. What do we hit at wide receiver so far? We talked about all the Bucks game, the Packers game, all those guys. Oh, Calvin Ridley's go back to this ghost of Calvin Ridley. If people haven't had 17 weeks enough of this, but it is an objectively really good spot for Calvin Ridley again. He's only had more than 20% of the team targets in one game over the past month, and that was the Jaguars game when he had 38% of the team targets. That was from Will Levis. Only 11.5% of Ridley's targets from Mason Rudolph have been inaccurate compared to 18.2% from Will Levis. Jaguar stuff, but the Jaguars played man coverage 42% of the time when these teams played in week 14. Ridley has been targeted on 42% of his routes from Mason Rudolph against man coverage. The last man-heavy opponent they faced was the Lions. He had 10 catches in that game. Also, Chikakonkwo, if we get this much man coverage again, has the lowest target rate on the team against man coverage. So if people are going to play Chigakonko and chase these last 2 games that came in kind of garbage time against zone-based defenses, like then you're getting leverage on him as well. So I do like Calvin Ridley. I have no idea what to do with Chris Olave if he plays, but Spencer Rattler targeted him 39% of the time the last time these teams played. They played together, so he's super cheap. I don't know. So no, I just don't know if Olave is going to like play. Like he could be out there, but like, are the Saints really going to put him out there for like 80% of the dropbacks? I don't know.
Yeah, he's 5'2" on DK.
I
Like
know.
you said, he's like if it was standard, off the shelf Olave.
Yeah, like
5'2".
if he was 6'8", like, but yeah, 5'2".
It's but again, that comes down to why would they push him? There doesn't seem any reason to, or even why even play him.
AJ Brown too. As much as Daigle dunked on Kenny Pickett for good reason, dude, AJ Brown had 60% of the targets.
Him and Devonta Smith had 23 of 25 targets. Like they just they just boxed out everyone else.
60, and that doesn't even count the 3 pass interferences AJ Brown drew.
Insane.
So any player that's getting a 60% target share at least feel like he needs to be brought up.
Not all targets are created equal, but for sure that is super. That is definitely of note. The sample isn't huge either, but it's the sample we have.
Oh, yeah, I assume he's not going to get 60%. I'm just saying,
Take the under on 60.
I mean, if you're Kenny Pickett, who has spent his whole career like lobbing up some passes to George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, then you get AJ Brown. What are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. Why not?
Every play 11.
I want a Jacoby Myers take as well. If you can give me one, Daigle, and whatever receivers that's Rich left for you.
I don't have one. I only have one other receiver. I have no Jacoby Myers take. Rich, we talked about this last week. How Jacoby Myers continues to offer a floor. But that's not what we're playing in fantasy, which is why he pops up in the optimizers as a cash game play every single week. And not only that, but we got Brock Bowers back. Like Aiden O'Connell's goes back under center. We get Brock Bowers 35% target share back, whereas he was at 16.5% and 17.5% in 2 games from Desmond Ridder. So I just think we keep riding this Brock Bowers train if you can fit it in.
That's kind of what I was getting at. That's what I wanted to hear because I don't like Myers when he's chalky. I just don't like it. I don't like it.
No.
Bad game environment as well.
Yeah, ceiling is so questionable.
Yeah, O'Connell's finished 3 games this year, and in those games, Bowers has 10, 14, and 13 targets.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a good stat. Now, does O'Connell finish today? This week? I don't know. We'll see. Probably.
He finally scrambled a couple times. He hadn't done it to this point, but he was clearly a little bit more mobile on that ankle injury. It's so odd that he went from an air cast to then scrambling 2 weeks later.
Daigle, give me your most ambitious, like 4-ish K receiver. That is there anybody we haven't talked about yet?
I actually only had one more. Oh, TJ's coming out hot. No CD Lamb. Kevontae Turpin's gonna get 3 chances. He just got to make do on one of those chances.
He's gonna be on the field for 20% of snaps, but he's gonna get 6 or 7 targets. That's my hot take.
God, that game's gonna be so bad.
They'll get a reverse too, probably, right? They give him a reverse at some point, maybe a run of some sort, wide receiver screen.
Even though sometimes they still mix in those fly routes for him, and I don't get it because why are you throwing someone who's 5'6" out there for a fly route? The only other one I had, it doesn't answer your 4K question, by the way. We can kick it back to Rich for that. The only other one I had for FanDuel was Darnell Mooney in the evening, just because that game could be hot against the Commanders and Falcons. Michael Penix, it's a different defense, yes, but Michael Penix last week, 5 of 8 on throws 10 yards downfield for 11.3 yards per attempt. Mooney, 4 of his 6 targets came 10 yards downfield as well. And the Commanders have allowed the 9th most completions deep, plus a league high 10 touchdowns on throws 20 yards deep. So I think you got some splash play essence in Mooney on FanDuel.
Why can't we find one Dallas receiver that's interesting? I don't understand. I get it, sort of. You don't really want to play.
Because their quarterback threw for 40 yards when these teams played last time with CD Lamb.
But they're going to be on the comeback here, and
they're going to be on the comeback.
Attempting a comeback.
Like they weren't the first time.
There is one.
Like they weren't the first time with CD Lamb.
I mean, they lose Lamb, and we just don't care.
No, I don't. I don't care about one Cowboy receiver.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just wild. I get
Eagles,
it.
You think they're giving up 5 more passing touchdowns like they did last week? I don't.
Also, Cooper Rush is a little bit different than Jaden Daniels.
Exactly.
Just a little bit. They have been
Yeah.
compared to each other before, but sure.
Competent, to be fair. I'm not saying he's Daniels, but Cooper Rush is a
But this slate doesn't
quarterback.
need a 4K receiver.
Okay.
You don't need a 4K receiver. What are you trying to get to? The expense, like, what are you trying to jam in this week? So the last 4 weeks,
Saquon.
the last 4 weeks we've had, you can easily play him. It's not even hard. The last 4 weeks we've had nothing but high price running backs. People are trying to get to 3+ of, like literally just great running back plays. This week, it's the running back spot is way more nebulous than it's ever been, and the most expensive running backs are guys that don't catch passes. There's no jam them in. Like, we got to get to these 3 running backs this week. There isn't. It just doesn't. That's not the way the slate is. We haven't had that meta for a while. So you can get to Justin Jefferson. You can actually play, because no one's been playing guys like Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua when these expensive receivers. That hasn't been where the meta's been the past month. And now you're going to see some of those guys in lineups this week. Like, you're going to see Justin Jefferson in lineups this weekend. You're probably going to see Mike Evans in lineups this weekend. And like, that's just not where the meta's been. So like it's just not really necessary. Like, and you've got guys right around that spot. Like, we brought up Jalen McMillan at 4.6. We brought up Josh Downs at 4.8. We brought up Chris Olave at 5.2. Like, those guys are all in that price range. Like, you can easily get those guys.
Yeah.
I just like to know somebody's there if I need them. You know what I mean? In a pinch. And I know the pool has not been great for a while now.
I mean, dude, Wicks is 3,900 without Christian
and you got
Watson.
Wicks and
3,900, man. That's
and
he's better,
Downs.
he's better than Kayshon Boutte. Don't look at his results this year, but he's better than Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, Wicks at 39. Like, we've already got those guys.
Yeah, you got those guys in the best game environment of the week too, McMillan and Wicks.
Yeah, you don't need to get to Jalen Coker this week. You don't need to do probably Kevontae Turpin. I'm sorry, TJ. You probably don't need to.
The Sims actually broke because they couldn't get Kayshon Boutte in there. They're like, we don't know what to do. We can't get him in there.
I forgot you did. That's the Saturday slate.
Ryan Miller, Wicks. Those are the 3 cheapies this week.
Who are they, TJ? Sam again?
Turpin, Ryan Miller, and Wicks.
I love it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, TJ's in those like Millie Maker streets, I think.
Yeah, the showdown.
Yeah, well, he's shooting for the 40% up top, and like that's just not the kind of stuff.
TJ's like actually winning the large field, so I will laugh at Ryan Miller until he's in TJ's winning lineup.
All right, and I know Rich, we single entry stuff. We like the smaller field, like less than 1,000.
I mean, it's more my lane, and it's all preference, like, right, like whatever you're successful, like what kind of speaks to you.
All right.
Okay, tight ends. What do you got, Daigle?
We didn't bring up Brian Thomas Jr., did we?
Oh no, we didn't talk
was
about
he not
him.
mentioned? He's going to be
Just
one of the
keep
most
playing
popular receivers. Just there, there you go, BTJ. He's going to be. I think he's the guy that hit the majority of my lineups as far as receivers. Just not as expensive as he should be. Is he a second rounder next year, or possibly late first for like season long in best ball? Are we even in that conversation yet?
Yeah, if they get rid of Christian Kirk, which was a lot of people thought they were going to trade him before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And so if they do move on from him, that will just be fuel on the fire. But yeah, listen, we were drafting at the 1-2 turn. Gamers were drafting Drake London, and Drake London ended up being fine, but Marvin Harrison Jr. and like, how does BTJ not jump up to like that type of like Chris Olave? Like, how does he not be handled the same way? Right?
He would just take Marvin Harrison Jr.'s place like at the first, second round turn.
Wow. Yeah.
Bowers will be the interesting guy to see what people do with, especially in these early like best balls. I can't wait to see like where like Bowers opens up.
Well, especially if because probably the early consensus will be that Travis Kelce will retire if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. So we'll have to play that out too.
Well, we're coming off of like where early round tight end didn't work out. You had the Laporta factor where like he was coming off of the best rookie tight end season and then wasn't a safe pick. And then we have no idea who the Raiders quarterback is going to be when this opens.
Can't be worse, can it?
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, it can be theoretically, but
you also don't know, are they going to have a better receiver on the team than Jacoby Myers? Like, there's a lot of I'm very curious to see where Bowers opens up, because I've already seen some people say he's going to be a 1-2 turn player, and
he might be.
Ambitious.
It doesn't sound like you like it.
It's ambitious. There's a lot that can go wrong. I mean, I just think tight end Bowers was a guy I drafted a lot of this year because he fit what I looked for, a cheaper price tight end that could be a top 2 target on his team. That's just like all I care about. And now he's going to be an expensive tight end And it's just like I have a little more hesitation on expensive tight ends because they just aren't good as picks historically as running backs and wide receivers in the first place.
Yeah,
Like he needs to be Travis Kelce. Like he needs to be prime Travis Kelce at that spot, and that's always tough. It's a tough needle to thread.
Okay. Speaking of Travis Kelce, not on this slate, not a lot of good tight ends in the slate, Daigle, but give us our best choices available.
I think you're kind of looking at lawn darts here. And so honestly, I talked about the ones I wanted to say: Payne Durham, Tucker Kraft, TJ Hawkinson, if you're trying to get involved and tack on like another unique piece with Sam Darnold. I'm honestly, and Brock Bowers, who we talked about, I'm just living in that range, honestly, because the chalk is going to be Chig. Chalk is 100% going to be Chig.
And Rich doesn't like that the way it sets up as far as the matchup. You're besmirching the man coverage. That's not what
he's the lowest target rate on the team against man coverage, 0.4 yards per route run. And we saw that play out in the first matchup where the Jaguars played 42% man coverage, and I think he had 3 catches for 8 yards.
Interesting. Was anybody left for you, Rich, as far as
No, I'm the same thing. Like I'm basically, if you can't pay for Bowers, then play just one of the tight ends in Minnesota, Green Bay.
Yep. Just get in your environment.
You just play the game environment at the position.
Just another slate, and this is just an 8-gamer, 9-gamer, depending on where we just barely even mentioned the team, the 2018 total, the Buffalo Bills. I know we mentioned James Cook. We didn't. I don't know. Was Josh Allen even mentioned in passing? I don't think we mentioned any of the receivers.
But you can always play Josh Allen. Like if someone's like, "Hey, why can't I play Josh Allen?" I will say, "You can.
You can. You can 100%.
You absolutely.
That was one of the reasons why I was asking for cheap receivers, because I was thinking about the naked Josh Allen. It's still a battle for MVP. I don't know if anybody cares about that, if Lamar and Allen care about it, but it seems like it's going to come down to. I think Allen was the big favorite, but I think it's closed a little bit after last week. All right, that's it. That's it for the slate. Do want to get your favorite? I mean, people will listen to the entire show, but I imagine if you want to give them the summary and a little confined a couple minutes here, Rich, your favorite quarterback, your favorite stack on the slate is who?
My favorite quarterback is Jaden Daniels on FanDuel, and I think Darnold on DK, or just in general for a price point if you don't want to go up. And then stack is still probably Baker doubles are from like a tournament stack potential. And I like from a tournament, I do love the tournament side. I like the Jaden Reed if you want to pair with Wicks or Tucker Kraft too, because all those guys are cheap too.
Mm-hmm.
Same question, John.
Yeah, I still, the computer's telling me Darnold side. I still want to go with my intuition and say the Love side. This is what I did last week too.
It's game selection. I think it's what game selection you're doing.
And we even talked about on the show last week how I thought getting overweight on the Lions offense, everyone getting there with the Bears receivers and James Cook and Tajay Spears, and yet the computer told me none of that, so I went against it. So no, I'm pushing back in week 17, 24 hours before I fly to India. And I think Love doubles are where I'm going to go and soak up that Vikings on the other side of the ball as well.
Is there a layover? How long is that flight?
In total, it's 27 hours, but there's a couple connecting.
Wow, that's going to be spectacular. You got a bunch of movies downloaded. I guess you'll have Wi-Fi in the air, I'd imagine. Yes?
Yeah, and I got Switch. I got Switch. Plus, I have to train my timing. That way, I'm not jet lagged when I get there, because I arrive at 1 a.m. It's going to be kickoff here, but it's going to be overnight there. So I arrive at Monday at 1 a.m. and then the party bus to go to the first event is waiting for me at the airport in Bengaluru. So I just got to hit it and get going.
No downtime. You got to go straight to the party.
There is no downtime. It's a whole itinerary for the next week. Yeah.
Wow, that's going to be wild. And
my obligation is literally to buy alcohol and the tax duty-free section, and then arrive to the bus with it. And there is a group of our Indian friends waiting for me there.
this was why you watch Mission Impossible. That is your mission. You prepared accordingly.
I gladly accepted it. Now
you
the laundry that you can't see behind me, I haven't accepted that just yet. The packing still has to happen.
I can't wait to hear about the trip. It seems like it's going to be it's going to be spectacular.
Well, next week,
all right.
I'm on this show next week. It's going to be live at
week 18 in India.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun for sure. And you may or may not be, pulling an all-nighter. You may or may not be.
Not sure about that yet.
Who knows? What
I'll be here.
Condition we're going to get you.
I'll be here.
But that's going to be spectacucular. As if week 18 is not funky enough. We're going to get a wild card.
Rex Burkhead back. Can we get some goofy play?
We're done. We're done with this slate. We're going to go ahead and bring in producer TJ. We're going to bring in Rob. That is it as far as the NFL content. If you want to stick around and hang out with us, we're going to talk a little bit of movies. We're going to talk about the movie we watched last week. I think before we do that, we should give Rich an opportunity. I'm hearing. Is that a dog?
The siren. Some kind of siren?
I couldn't tell what that was, but everybody's good. All right, we got TJ. We have Rob as well. TJ will be choosing the new movie we're going to watch going forward. The movie we watched this week was chosen. There you go. Shout out to Mac Jones. I believe Daigle chose Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which we'll talk about in just a second, as our holiday/Christmas movie. But Rich, you weren't available to talk our most recent movie, Challengers. I feel like you wanted to chime in and just give your 2 cents on Challengers. Yeah,
Challengers. It was a very challenging movie. Honestly, one of the more frustrating movie experiences I've had. I do wonder, I'm curious your guys' take on this too, if this movie was told as a linear story, if it would have been a lot better. And my pitch for that is that these characters are so just the shell of what you would do when you create these characters. Like you have kind of like the bad boy doesn't listen, like, kind of like Peter, like they're all, but there's no character development for any of these. Like what you get at the face value, there's no development. So with this movie opening with the final match, you open with them in the final match, and 35 minutes in this movie, kind of where it's going to end. And all you're looking for is, because we've seen movies, like we've seen this trope before, and you're like, all right, I can fill in all the blanks from basically 35 to 40, 55 minutes on to where the movie started. Now, how is it this movie for the next hour and a half going to throw me off the scent or give me something interesting? And they don't. They give you absolutely nothing. The characters at the 45-minute mark are the exact same as where you open the movie, and you could literally not watch the middle hour and a half and the movie be any different. So I wonder if it was told linearly, if it would be better. And what do you guys think about that? Or you guys probably don't agree, because I already heard your guys' review. So
where I would disagree with that is I think where it kind of throws you off the scent is it makes you think that the story is about Art and Tashi, or Patrick and Tashi, but at the end of the day, it's about Art and Patrick, and that's what they discover at the end of it.
But you kind of know that. You know how that's in. You know how that's going to end, is what I mean. We've seen these movies. Like that was never a surprise. Like the whole ending, outside of the insane choices they made in the third act of this movie, as far as cinematography goes, that totally just like they didn't do for 2 acts of this movie. Like they're starting to do like extreme close-ups. They're starting to do the POV, and it's like, why are we doing this now? Like, what are these choices that are being made that are out of context? Also, the soundtrack to this movie, it's an amazing soundtrack if you listen to it. Not in this movie.
That was Rob's complaint too. Yeah.
I like the music in this movie, the actual music, but not in the movie.
Yeah, not the way they use it though. Like that was my point. Like the way they used it was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
And then I do gotta talk about the windstorm set of conversation. This is the most ludicrous, overhanded use of a metaphor I've ever seen in a movie, like in probably the last decade, where he's trying to say like how chaotic the wind is and how these things happen, as it ties the story. And there's literally like use of CGI garbage just flying around. I mean, joking. I was waiting for Glenn Powell to come out and like chase a tornado at one point. I'm like, this is the most heavy-handed True Detective season 2 type metaphor shit I've ever seen in a story. I was so frustrated with this movie, man. I was like so furious, like watching this movie.
Thank you for not making me the only one who did not enjoy this movie thoroughly.
But like,
it could have been good. My problem is it could have been good. It's like why I was a little more harsh on like the substance than some people. It's because like it could have been great or it could have been good. But I feel like the writing of these characters was terrible. And then the structuring of the story, I think, hurt this movie for me.
Was this across the board in the household? Did you watch this with Jenny?
Yeah. She was literally laughing out loud at some shots in that third act. She's like, what are these choices being made? Like at one point they just show like Art's like sweaty calf as like extreme close-up. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like what are we doing?
Well, they were intentionally trying to over-sexualize the men.
Is a tennis match and they're giving out by the end.
Did you like the Whiplash ending?
What was the Whiplash ending?
Well, like, she did everything she could to get the absolute best out of her husband /
Oh yeah, I didn't agree with that actually too, because I think if that was the ultimate goal moving forward, because like if you're saying that she needed to beat him, he needs to not be in on it for that to work, for that to be the real angle. He needs to not be in on it, and he's in on it once he tells him that she cheated on him for a second time, mind you, even though it was unnecessary to have the second cheat, except for to completely swerve into how terrible she was as a person and like couldn't get over the fact that like she was turned down by like someone that she couldn't manipulate and control thoroughly. But like they had already set up the dynamic where he thought she cheated, that they did something in Atlanta and it was already going to pay off, and they just doubled down and they were like, we'll do it again in the wind. And like, I don't know, man. To me, I thought this was like some 8th grade writing. Like, I thought it was like you gave you the shell of a character and then just they did nothing with any of these characters.
Did you, by chance, not to put you on the spot, did you happen to have a tight end ready for this or no?
Yeah, I was gonna give it a Vasante Shianko.
What?
Because you had the locker room dong scene, so I was just gonna give it.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be Vashante Shenko?
I will say that the thing I was most let down by this movie was when they had the sauna scene. I thought that scene could have really paid off, and they did absolutely nothing. That was like a scene they really could have paid off some character development, and they didn't.
All right. We'll move on to this week's movie. Hopefully you enjoyed this one more. It is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This was chosen by Daigle. I'll give the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis. 2-bit crook Harry Lockhart, that's Robert Downey Jr., stumbles into an audition for a mystery film while on the run from the cops. Winning the part, he lands in Hollywood, where he's flung into a tangled, murderous conspiracy with his childhood sweetheart, Harmony Lane, who's Michelle Monaghan, and hard-boiled private eye Perry Van Shrike, that's Val Kilmer. This deadpan, affectionate parody of film noir tropes is named for film critic Pauline Kael's influential 1968 collection of film reviews and essays. Did not know that. Shout out to Pauline. All right, Daigle. And who watched this for the first time? Because I feel like somebody watched this on repeat. Rob, you watched it for the first time. TJ, first time or no?
Yep, first time.
Okay, and Daigle, you chose this movie. Have you seen it before?
It had been decades, so this is basically like watching it the first time again.
It took me about 10 minutes in the movie. I'm like, wait a second. I think I've seen this before. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen this. Like you, I watched it with you 20 years ago, whatever it was. This did come out in 2005. Yeah. And Rich, I believe you've seen this as well. Yes.
I'm in the same boat. I remember seeing it, and that's kind of what my take's going to pivot off of too.
All right. You want to get us started, Rich? It sounds like you got to take right at the.
I just ranted on challengers for the thing, but yeah, I'll do mine first. So I mean, I seen this movie when I was 22 years old, and now watching it at 42 years old, it was very different. Like I remember this movie being 22-year-old, being like, oh, it's just kind of slick, it's kind of witty, and there's fun banter. And I do think like the noir parody stuff works well in this movie, but as a 42-year-old, there's a lot that just doesn't hold up compared to 22-year-old me. And I think that's just when you see movies different points of your lives. I also think that this movie too, obviously from woke society message, like also doesn't hold up for things that you can get away with in 2005 that you can't get away with in 2024. But also the characters are very confusing now when I rewatch this, like kind of where Harmony's character especially confusing. I don't really know what he's really trying to say with Harmony. And then Robert Downey Jr.'s character of kind of like ping pong is kind of like from the Challengers, like, is he trying to tell me he's a good guy, but not like, there's really kind of like, because he sleeps with like Harmony's friend. And then he has like the whole scene of like saying, where he tries to touch her boob with the spider, and like she's like accepting of it. And he's like, no, you shouldn't be accepting of that. And it's like he kind of just like oscillates where it's kind of like confusing. And then Val Kilmer, who is excellent in the movie, but he's solely there for exposition and to be just like a punching bag, like in this movie, just like the setup, just like one-liners. And so like all of those things are kind of just didn't hold up to me. I'm very intrigued to hear when we get to the ending of this movie, what you guys kind of thought of the decision that's made.
Well, Daigle, you chose this movie. You've seen it before, a long time ago. Why did you choose it? And was it how you remembered?
Like Rich said, it's a little, I don't know about worse than I remember. It just doesn't hold up as much. Probably not as enjoyable. But also, it's been so long that I don't remember watching it the first time either. Like seeing this again, I was like, oh, yeah, I don't remember that part at all. I think where I got the most enjoyment from this movie, and it's not even saying like I think it's a great film. I think it's fine. Like it's good. I'm glad I watched it again. I got the most enjoyment just from the banter personally. I even went on YouTube and started pulling up old clips of Robert Downey Jr. when he was filming this. And like he even says the most fun he had here was that Val Kilmer's already a quirky dude. And so the fact like they could walk through every scene and just basically do whatever the hell they wanted. And Shane Black, the director, like no one would tell them to stop. Like they were just doing this off the cuff. And you could tell they were having fun just recording their conversations with one another. Because again, this movie is a parody of a parody, basically. Val Kilmer's character is a parody of any gay character in any movie back then. So I think that's what I enjoyed the most about it.
Yeah, I'm with you as far as the banter. That's probably my favorite part. And I must have been 15, 20, 25 minutes in this movie, and I was thinking, this movie reminds me a lot of The Good Guys. And then it dawned on me, like, oh yeah, same guy. And Shane Black, he wrote both. If you like,
the nice guys,
the nice guys. What's The Good Guys? Is that something I just made up that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of that movie, The Nice Guys, with Russell Crowe. Jump in here, TJ. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it was really interesting seeing this movie for the first time and not being overly familiar with Shane Black outside of The Nice Guys and Iron Man 3. And it's crazy to see how many similarities there are from this movie into Iron Man 3, which of course is starring Robert Downey Jr. Just in terms of like the chaotic fish out of water elements that they have the main character going throughout this. That's the plot in Iron Man 3, is he essentially gets booted out of his armor, terrorist bombs his house, and he has to figure out what to do from there. And it felt very much like that, with the thief going to be an actor in this and then trying to be a private investigator, figure it all out, especially because it was all Robert Downey Jr. in both of those films. And I agree with what you guys said 100% about the banter. And that's fun. It was fun for me to watch that because Robert Downey Jr.'s banter abilities are one of the main things that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe so successful. After his second movie, Iron Man 3 included, they didn't even have lines for him anymore. Robert Downey Jr. wouldn't have lines in his scripts. He'd just have scenarios, and they'd say like, "Hey, go be Iron Man, go talk, go do banter." And so I felt a lot of that with this between him and Val Kilmer. It totally ages so poorly. Like, not even just with some of the comedy style, but I guess it is mostly based around the comedy, but just a lot of the filmmaking style would not fly with that one today. And a lot of not even just in terms of what's acceptable now compared to what was acceptable when this came out, but so many of their things for shock, I feel like they would make a joke for shock value, whereas now it just wouldn't hit in the same way that I'm sure it did in 2005. I enjoyed it. It was chaotic. It was silly. It was weird. Don't think I loved it, but I had fun.
Yeah, just some of the shock value bits. Well, the finger, his finger got taken off.
The thing was so weird. Why? What was this bit where he got his door? He closed his finger in a door, and then it just chops perfectly clean, off. That That was the wildest little thing they decided to add into that.
It ends up in a dog's mouth. He eventually gets out of the dog's mouth, and then a villain later on. The cops later on just start messing with his finger. The Russian roulette thing I thought was pretty funny as far as kind of the slapstick thing, which reminded me of Pulp Fiction. Did anybody else get Pulp Fiction vibes from the Russian roulette scene? The back scene with in Pulp Fiction. I was going to give a spoiler, but if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction at this point, what are you doing? And he's
imagine
like,
not seeing that movie.
What? No,
I said imagine not having seen that movie at this point.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said I have not seen it. I'm like, I cannot imagine you've not seen it. And then his response, like, well, there's only an 8% chance he was going to get shot anyway, which that made me laugh.
This doesn't feel like
dead body.
This doesn't feel like it makes sense at all. But to me, this movie feels like if Pulp Fiction and Austin Powers had a baby. And I know that doesn't really make sense, but that's how my brain sees it.
And there was a little bit of Reservoir Dogs there in that scene at the end where several people got shot. It just felt like there was some influence there from Tarantino. We didn't get your thoughts here, Rob. But what do you got as far as Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
I hadn't seen this movie yet, and it's one of those ones that just kind of slipped away. When it came out, I wanted to see it, and then it just sort of slipped through the cracks. Never got to it, and I watched it this morning. As you can probably hear in my voice, I'm super healthy right now, so it was nice to sit down and watch a movie. But I enjoyed it overall. I mean, it got in and out like it should have in the hour and 30 minutes. I like Shane Black movies. I mean, you go back to one of my favorite movies as a kid was The Monster Squad, which is a movie that he directed.
He did that? I didn't know that.
He did the Lethal Weapon movies. He did
he was a writer forever.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff.
Wolfman's Got Nads. Was that the big line for Monster Squad? I think it was.
It is. So I did like the banter. I mean, that was all fine for me. I don't think it was over the top bad by any means. I think it was, I don't think they do it today. I do think the thing I was going to bring up was Nice Guys. I feel like he just made this movie again better, with the Nice Guys. Yeah. So I like the Nice Guys a little bit more, but this movie was fun. And once you're in on it, then you get it, right? Like, because it's just such a parody of the old movies where just the unlikeliness of these scenarios happening one after another. And once they lean into it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Because at first you're like, ugh. And then you're like, oh, I see what this movie is. So once you're into it that way, it's great, but you just have to get in on it right away, I think. And I don't know if everyone has the mental capacity to be in on the joke of what the movie is right away.
This was also the rebirth of Robert Downey Jr.'s career, right?
Let me pull up his, I meant to look at that. Let's pull up his IMDb. Because
I mean,
this is the resurgence.
Like, not Iron Man was really, really what did it, and they still was like, everybody was telling the casting director, like, no, don't do this with Robert Downey Jr. You can't trust them. Like, and so I think it kind of started the comeback, but he still did not have anyone's faith in the industry at that time.
2005, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Also, Good Night and Good Luck. Let's see.
Yeah, that was a big one for him too.
That's the Keanu Reeves movie, 2006. So Zodiac was 2007, which that's obviously a spectacular movie. 2008 is Iron Man. Charlie Bartlett between those two.
So this was like a little beginning of a run. Yeah.
This was him coming back, though.
Yeah. Iron Man 2008, Tropic Thunder 2008. Pretty good year for Robert Downey.
That's when he was back. That's when he was back.
Yeah, but Good Night, Good Luck was a movie that it doesn't get talked about today, but when that came out, it was a big deal because of the acting and stuff in that movie. It was
very movie.
Yeah,
Oscar nominee, right?
Right. So
Clooney was behind it in some way.
I believe so, but yeah, that was a big movie for him at the time.
Also, Robert Downey Jr. would not film Tropic Thunder in 2025. I can guarantee it.
That you could though, like because that's how they play. The way they played it.
I bet he still would. After seeing all the things he did in
more than this
in The Sympathizer, which if you haven't watched HBO's The Sympathizer, he plays like 7 different characters. It's an incredibly good show about the Vietnam War.
I've not seen it. It's on the list.
From the Vietnamese perspective, like it's truly wonderful. biggest award snub from TV this year is that he's the only person that really got and he was winning stuff too. RDJ is really the only person that got nominated for stuff, but like the whole cast is incredible in that show. But he plays like 7 different characters, and that made me feel like, okay, you know what? Maybe he would still try the I'm a dude pretending to be another dude, pretending to be another dude, or whatever it is. Pretending to be a dude playing another dude, whatever it is.
Probably speaking of like actors and careers and things like that, I thought Shannon Sossaman was going to be a mega star. She started her career in 2001, Knight's Tale, then 40 Days and 40 Nights, and then The Rules of Attraction, which probably doesn't hold up as well as it did, like as it played 20 years ago. But I really liked that movie when I was younger, and I'm like, this Shannon Sossaman, she's going places, and she just kind of disappeared. She's in this movie as like the pink-haired girl, and hasn't done a heck of a lot else. I think kind of that I was digging into it. I was curious, is by choice. She sort of like wanted to disappear, I think. But we haven't really seen her do much else.
Well, she did one of the worst sequels I've ever seen in my life, so there's that.
Sinister 2?
Yeah, awful. Like Sinister 1's a fine, like pretty good horror movie with good jump scares and stuff. Sinister 2 might be the worst horror movie sequel off of a good opening movie. That's
a bold statement.
I know it's a bold statement, but it's really bad. It's really, really bad, Dean.
Was nobody else smitten by Shannon Sossaman 20 years ago? Was that just me?
A Knight's Tale was her first movie. That's an incredible debut. That movie's fantastic.
That was her first movie in 2001. Yeah. So she started, and then 40 Days, 40 Nights, and then Rules of Attraction. I'm like, did she's going places. Rules of Attraction was kind of a box office bomb, but maybe I liked it. That's also it's in the American Psycho world. The Dawson plays the brother of the dude from American Psycho. I don't know if that's actually mentioned in the movie. It's just known, I guess, in the books or whatever. But maybe one day I'll revisit Rules of Attraction. It's probably not as good as I remember it in my head. Rich, you said you had a thought as far as the ending of this movie. Is this like breaking the fourth wall? What was your issue with the ending?
Yeah, I want to know what you guys thought about having the choice of having Val Kilmer's character go up to confront the dad and not Harmony.
Oh.
I thought it should have been RDJ or Harmony. Felt weird that it was Val Kilmer's character.
It was super weird. Like, I mean,
do you think it was on purpose though?
I feel like if it was Val Kilmer's character, he should have shot him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if him not doing anything other than slapping him, that feels like restraint and growth if it's coming from Harmony. But Kilmer's character is just like a random dude who's already killed a bunch of people anyways. Why not just shoot? Why not just put the gun in his mouth and shoot him if you're going to go do that? It felt like
might have did him a favor because he wasn't living a great life. So maybe, he's living a torture life, it appears, at this point. So,
but do you think it needed to, do you think the director's thought, and I'm not saying I agree with this or don't agree with it, but do you think he was like, it needs to be a character that the father didn't know to come and let him know about the terrible shit that he's done? So that, you know what I mean?
He barely even brought it up. Like, it should have been.
Well, he was letting him know that it was known. Like, he didn't need to say what he did. It didn't need to explicitly be said.
Because it's really weird because when they first bring up that his sister or her sister actually did commit suicide, Kilmer plays off on where he doesn't even care. Like he's like, let's move on and really focus on this. And it was really, that's why I thought it was weird that they had him actually go confront him. I was like, you didn't even care. Like when we found out.
It was weird because it still felt like, even though like you said, Rob, from a viewer's standpoint, I didn't think it needed to be any more explicit than what he said. Like we could tell what he was doing, but it still kind of seemed like the dad was in denial about what he did. Like, I loved my daughter. What are you talking about? You're a terrible man doing this to me. And so it seemed like there was a little bit more needing of no, man, you're the terrible man. I am the big man. You're the terrible person. Like big man doing that to his daughter. I was waiting for something like that. If it was going to be him, it just felt like this. It was disjointed a little bit.
Well, I guess the other thought would be he's on his deathbed, right? And Val Kilmer almost represents the Grim Reaper, coming to tell him about his, what he did to reflect for where he's going to be ending up. I mean, I'm thinking too deep into this probably.
I
but-
like that a lot, but I also
that-
just needed it to be darker to fit that.
Fair. That's definitely fair.
But I love that analogy.
So it could have been something like that. I'm not sure. God, Rich, you brought something up, and I wanted to push back on it, and now I forget what it was earlier in your review.
I don't remember.
If I remember it, I'll let you know.
That's unlike you, Rob. Whenever you want to push back, you push back. So that's unfortunate you lost it.
I'm just super healthy right now, Dean. Just like so good. Also, speaking of Christmas movies, on Christmas Eve, I felt like I was in a Home Alone movie on ice outside and landed on my shoulder and laid on the ground for 10 minutes thinking that I had broken it. Which was while I was sick. So it's been a great. We love Christmas. It's so good.
Thanks for jumping on. I didn't realize you were ill, so thank you for jumping on and powering through. Hopefully we'll get better.
I'm fine.
It's the time of the year where everyone's ill. It's like that 5 days between Christmas and New Year's where you don't know what you have. You're tired. Maybe you are. It's the weather change. You just don't know.
Yeah, I just started playing Red Dead 2 again. Like it's
Nice.
fine. It's fine.
That's a fun game.
I wish I could
played
do
Red Dead
anything other than Marvel Rivals right now. All my entire life is just work, parenting, and Marvel Rivals. That's the only thing going on.
I'm gonna get in on that. I heard the kids are talking about it. I hear it's a big thing. So maybe we'll meet up. And I don't want to be terrible though. I don't want to be the weak link. So I always feel bad about being that guy. But I just started playing Call of Duty. And I'm not great at that either. But we're
as long as you play something like Rivals, like structurally correctly, that's what matters more. Like people don't care if you're bad at the game. It's if you're doing like stuff you're not supposed to be doing to help your team win the goal is where people get mad. Like that.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what the goal is.
Did you play Overwatch? Did you play Overwatch at all?
No.
Yeah.
Like we could do
I think it's like a
something
4-on-4 or 5-on-5 or something.
We'll do something to start. Yeah, it's 6-on-6, and we can do something to start where it's like you could pick a character like the Punisher, where it's essentially you're just playing Call of Duty because you just got guns, and I'll be a healer and I'll just keep you alive.
There you go. Yeah. I'll take it. Anything else as far as the movie, or shall we play the old Rotten Tomatoes IMDb game? Any other thoughts? Favorite scenes? Favorite lines? Anything that's of note? No. All right. We're playing the IMDb game 1 through 10. Rich, give me a score for Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
6.8.
John?
6.5.
TJ?
I have one last final thought on the movie I forgot to bring up, and so I do want to actually do it.
He literally asked like 3 seconds ago.
I know, and I said no, and then I remembered as soon as I said no that there actually was one thing I forgot to bring up. That's my bad. And that was it was something Rich brought up earlier about they didn't really seem to know what to do with Robert Downey Jr.'s character of like, I'm a bad guy, but with the boob and the spider, he was like, oh no, you shouldn't be so accepting of that. It was so interesting though, because it kind of felt like the writing intended for that to be like a real good guy moment, but at the same time it was like very misogynistic. It wasn't like you need to not allow this kind of thing because this is your body and you shouldn't, and you should be like protecting yourself. It was more like this is tainting you. You can't allow this to happen because it's tainting you for me. And so it was just like a very 2005 kind of attempts at being the good guy kind of thing in that moment. And it seemed like they were trying, but kind of got it wrong, I thought. And IMDb score, I will go 6.6.
Okay,
I think everybody's guessed in the 6s, if I'm not mistaken.
I forgot what everybody else's was, but
I have not guessed yet. And you just brought up what I wanted to push back on Rich. And I think that the morals that Robert Downey Jr.'s character has was sort of described, where he is the type of person that is afraid of success. And throughout his entire life, he talks about how when things are starting to go good, he messes them up intentionally so that things don't go well, whether it's work or especially relationships. So once he's finally getting in with her the way that he wants to get in with her, he purposely sabotages it. And I think we've all either A, done that, or B, know people that do that. So I think that's who his character was. And that was his growth throughout this movie, was getting past that as a person and becoming like, that was his character arc.
Yeah, I just meant on how inconsistent he was in terms of because like TJ just brought up like the thing or the spider. But when they first meet each other, he literally like goes on like a terrible dialogue rant of why like if a woman sleeps with 100 guys, like she's this type of person, but if a guy sleeps with 100 women, he's this type of person. And it's like it's just so out of touch as dialogue.
Yeah, for sure. No
It was
arguments there.
very
It
much
was
like
so weird.
with women specifically. It kind of seemed like I'm either going to be the bad guy or I'm going to be the good guy. And if I'm the good guy, that means
I haven't noticed this with Shane Black and like gone back thought like, is he just bad at writing women characters? Is that like a thing? I don't know if that's a consistency he has or not.
Well, look at where he comes from. He's 80s action going into
80s
the
action,
early
dude.
90s.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
tracks.
he's Lethal Weapon. He's the Last Boy Scout, right? So that's the movies he was creating. And not that we can't evolve, but it's really hard to evolve the older you get, the characterization of people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in Hollywood, you're also further apart from people and knowing how people tick. So like his mind is probably still on 1980s values, 70s values.
Well, then
right?
he probably was. I don't know if it's
That's what I mean. Like, right. So like his evolution is probably a little bit tougher. I'm probably out of line for speaking for him, but I think as a whole society, it's tougher to come up to date the older you get and the more you're writing characters, right?
There was a whole lot of thematic elements involving consent in this movie where like a lot of it was just straight up, I don't want to even say some of the words on the stream just in case YouTube flags us for something so we can still monetize this 2-hour show. But a lot of the aspects of it were just like straight up dark. But even when they kind of seemed to be like, no, this is wrong, consent is good, they were still kind of odd about it.
He also wrote Last Action Hero, by the way. I wasn't aware of that one. Lethal Weapon 3, Lethal Weapon, Monster Squad. I guess he acted in Predator. He was a character in Predator.
Yeah, he's in the original OG Predator.
Yeah, which I did not know. I don't know the Predator very well. I'm aware of it's a
What
thing.
a cast! What a cast for that first Predator movie.
First one
Jesse
still
the
kicks
Body?
ass too.
It kicks so much ass.
Yeah, it's so good.
So
I
good.
haven't really seen it start to finish. Like I'm aware of
Really?
it.
That
Yeah, I
is
mean I know it. I'm not a big action guy. I mean I'm aware of it.
It's
Arnold
so much
and
fun,
It's
Dean.
fine. It's just not really my thing. Was
so
the
much
guy
fun.
from
The guy from everything.
Gilmore.
The guy from everything.
I think it was the name.
Yeah, Jesse Ventura in there as well. You had Apollo Creed in there.
What's his real name though? I didn't want to say Apollo Creed, but
Well, that's what
that's what was
Carl Douglas.
Carl
Carl
Weathers.
no Weathers.
Carl Weathers.
Carl
Weathers,
Weathers.
thank you. I knew it was Carl, and then I was like trying to sound smart before I could confirm it in my brain. But Carl Weathers, thank you.
Rob, I never got a score. IMDb score.
I think one of them nailed it, but I'll just go higher just because I think this is one of those. I think this is one of those movies where people that are reviewing it just reviewed it because they like it. So I'm going to go to 7.1.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 7.5, which is
Wow.
surprisingly high. I was
We were way
surprised
off.
it was that high. Yeah, in the mid sevens, and IMDb is kind of tough as far as their scale sometimes. Let's go ahead
I was
and
thinking too.
knock out Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, I have Good Night and Good Luck pulled up for some reason. Let's get back to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I want both the critics and the audience. Rob, you're going first.
96 for both.
Ooh, 96. TJ.
I'll go higher than I had originally planned based on the IMDb one. I think it's important to look at this with 2005 eyes as opposed to 2025 eyes. And so I'll go 91 critics, 89 audience.
Daigle?
Yeah, TJ kind of took my path. I'll go a little bit higher. I'll go 92 critics, 86 audience.
Rich.
Yeah, the IMDb thing threw me off. Although I was prepared, I was going to go higher anyways on Rotten Tomatoes because it's the thumbs up, thumbs down angle. So I'll say 85% critics, 90% audience.
You guys danced all around it. 182 critics, 86%. And over 100,000 ratings from the audience, 87%. So 86 and 87.
Well, yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah,
Feeling off with the IMDb score. Like I would have thought that the Rotten Tomatoes would have been higher with that score on IMDb.
Let's give a score ourselves. Let's see. TJ, do you have a character ready for us?
I do. I am going to go with a character that is making his live action debut in the upcoming Thunderbolts movie in 2025. And that character is Sentry. And one of the reasons I'm going with them is because I thought this movie just felt incredibly chaotic. Just a really like high highs, but like love the banter, but just very all over the place. And that's the character of Sentry. He's had about 3 different origin stories. Included in one of them, he is brought kind of out of retirement because he's dealing with all kinds of mental health issues, including paranoid schizophrenia, to come back and fight the Hulk because the Hulk is trying to destroy the world. And he's a character with a lot of power, a lot of energy, but also not able to keep things straight. And that's kind of how I felt about this movie. I was confused during a lot of it. I didn't understand what was going on for a lot of it, especially in the first half. But I still enjoyed it and had fun. Felt like a good, strong, powerful movie.
Rob, 1 through 5, give me a score.
I'm going to give it a 3.6. I also want to point out that Michael in the chat said Nosferatu is now a Christmas movie, which I agree. And you should... this is my favorite horror movie of the year. So since it got brought up, I'm just going to say when you get a chance to see it, see that
Jeremy
movie.
Jans gave it his movie of the year.
It's really, really good. Robert Eggers, I think, is one of the best directors at setting atmosphere like out there today. So when you get a chance to see Nosferatu, see that.
Oh, wow. That's a cast.
Pretty good run for Nicholas Hoult here, too.
Yeah.
How wild is it that Nicholas Hoult was a recast and that was originally Harry Styles?
Oh,
What?
thank God they did Nicholas Hoult.
That movie would have been ruined. Like, that movie would not have worked.
I don't think it would have been ruined because the movie is so damn
If it was
good.
Harry Styles,
I don't want him to be that role, but I don't even think one miscast would ruin this movie because this movie is so well done.
I've only heard terrific things about it.
And the other thing, Dean, you always talk about, that guy from That Thing. Isn't Michelle Moynihan kind of that woman from That Thing?
Yeah.
Because I was like looking at her, I'm like, I know Michelle Moynihan, but like I was trying to rattle off a movie in my head that she's in, and you just don't really know that many. And then you look up at her, it's just such a weird list of movies she's been in.
I think I first know her from she was married to Brady, right? Didn't Brady famously cheat on her or something? I shouldn't say cheat, but was that a thing? Am I making that up? Wasn't Tom Brady her wife, her husband at some point?
I don't remember if it was Michelle Moynihan.
It
was the actress from iRobot, which I can't remember who that is. That they had the first kid together.
Oh,
Tom Brady's first
okay.
kid.
So I confused her with somebody else. Bridget Monahan. Okay, so that's what it is.
Bridget
Monahan.
Yeah.
That's what's throwing me off. So my bad. All right, we have. But the only thing I heard about Nosferatu, I heard great things about it, but I did hear apparently they just basically made a Dracula movie, which I don't know if it.
Dude, that's what Nosferatu, like the people that don't, I mean, I understand not everyone knows this, but the original Nosferatu was made. They couldn't get the rights to Dracula, so they just said, screw it, and named it Nosferatu. Like, that's what they did in 1909 or whatever it was. So
they don't hide behind that they're kind of just like a bootleg Dracula movie, essentially.
It's Dracula. It's literally just Dracula. All the characters have like a 1-for-1 in the Dracula novel for the most part. There's little nuance changes, but for the most part, it's just this. It's the story of Dracula. I just don't know if it's ever been told as well as this, to be honest.
All right, Daigle, we got a wrestler
with like vampire lore, right? Where you look at it of like, depending on where you are searching, they have different names, they go by different things, and it's kind of like just the same story told by a different angle, which I kind of like the idea of too. Rumor has it that Eggers is going to be trying to do a Labyrinth remake.
Oh, interesting.
What if we did it?
Yeah.
What if we did it? Did you? I'm so mad. I'm so triggered by this Anaconda thing with Paul Rudd and Jack Black. Like, I'm so upset about this. Like,
and
what
you know
if we
they
just
didn't
did
call
it?
Voight's not going to be involved.
Like, where are the people that are in these meetings? And they're just like, what if we did it? What if we did it?
John Voight should be the Anaconda.
CGI.
I'd watch it. Yeah, so my wrestler, it's a comedic movie, a quirky movie. Like you asked, and I forgot to throw it in there, but of course, some of the memorable lines that made me laugh out loud were the one about who taught you math was a good one.
Yeah.
The Lord of the
Literally
Rings
just asked about it, Daigle.
Okay, this is now 30 minutes ago, not 3 seconds ago. Also, the Lord of the Rings reference. Don't worry, I'm not going to end this 17 times. So it is comedy. It's a parody on a parody, and I think a good parody wrestler who was very good at his role, especially in one-liners, was Santino Marella, who between his walk that everyone mimicked or mimicking the sock puppet Socko that Mankind had and having the snake instead. So Santino Marella, that is my kiss, kiss, bang, bang wrestler.
Rich, we need a tight end.
Yeah, I'm gonna base it off of kind of my thoughts of being, liking this movie when it first came out, and although it didn't end up bad, ended up being pretty mediocre and productive still. So I'm gonna give it a Hayden Hurst.
Was Hayden Hurst
an active
like a
tight
top pick? And he's
He was a first round pick.
Was he a first rounder? Okay, that makes sense.
They took him ahead of Andrews. In
Ah,
the same draft. Because the Ravens like taking 3 tight ends every draft. They did at that point.
I forgot he was a first rounder. He's 31 now.
Yeah.
All right. Good for Hayden Hurst. I thought this was mostly fun. I thought it was mostly enjoyable. I know that you could pick it apart if you want to, but I chose to just enjoy it for what it was. I feel like if you watch it a second time, there's gonna be some lines you just missed the first time that are funny. Like they just threw a whole bunch at you, especially the Robert Downey conversation stuff. So I enjoyed it for the most part, and I will give it. I feel like it's around. It's not quite a 3.5 out of 5, so a little bit less than 70 out of 100. I'll give it 68. 68 out of 100 points.
Almost.
That's
nice.
my scale. Almost. Yeah, almost. I didn't want to do. Yeah, 60. Yeah, that was good enough.
Every time I write like 69% or something in like the worksheet or something, like I always try to put nice on it.
I always do. Always put nice in there. Yeah.
It's hard, so hard not to.
Don't care how cheap it is. I think it's
I
funny.
know. It's so lazy. But
What is the origin story of that? Not to make this pod even longer. Was that like The Office? Who was the first person to do the nice thing?
oh, it's got to be older than
Family
that,
Guy?
right?
I don't remember who the first. Who was the
it's
first
gotta be
people,
old.
first person, first reference in pop culture for the nice? I don't know.
I love
Bill
the
and
fight.
Ted's. That was their favorite number. Remember, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
Their favorite number was 69. They didn't say why. It was a kids movie.
Tom Segura has that. It's an amazing thing for you guys to look up. He has a bit on 69 that is it's just an incredible 3 minutes. It's an absolute incredible 3 minutes if you just look it up.
Tom Segura, famous on this podcast for Tippy Toes. He had a whole segment on Tippy Toes, right, with Tom Segura, I believe, talking to McConaughey about it. So, all right, that is our last. Daigle. Well, what's our movie going forward? Yeah, we got to knock out.
No, it's TJ.
TJ won.
TJ. I'm sorry.
I needed that last Brock Purdy touchdown, not an interception, to get there. We came close.
I know it was close. Apologies for bringing it up. TJ, I know you were debating between a comic book movie and a comedy, I believe was your debate. Have we settled? Are we still back and forth?
Well, I like to provide a couple backups, have backups in mind just in case everybody has seen the movie I want to choose. But super duper quick soapbox moment first about television. We talked about it briefly, I think, on the show before, but Shrinking is one of the very best television shows out there right now. The season finale just aired, and it's truly incredible. Harrison Ford, Jason Segel, incredible cast, all about mental health. And twice in my life have I ever watched a TV show and had like a physical reaction and broke down into tears about something. And it's because I've had my own very difficult mental health journey. And it was one same writing team, this and Ted Lasso. One was in Ted Lasso where he has his panic attack at the club. And that broke me because that is a situation I've been in. That's a situation I've had before. And then this one, I won't spoil anything because it just came out, but the penultimate episode and the finale really, but the penultimate episode of Shrinking, there was a moment in it that just absolutely shattered me. And so I cannot recommend the show enough. It's truly, truly incredible. In terms of movie this week, my first choice is a comedy. It's a very silly, weird movie. But if you guys haven't seen it, or if maybe only one person has, I would love to select it. And that is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nick Cage and Pedro Pascal.
I have seen it. I mean, I don't mind seeing it again, but I've seen it before.
I have not, but I know it's something I probably should see.
Yeah, also something that I've wanted to see that started to slip through the cracks, so I'm in.
I'd be fine watching it. I've seen it, but I'd be fine watching it again. We need a comedy. We need a comedy for sure.
Yeah. My backup choice for a comedy.
I have found, like our palette, it's so diverse. It makes this fun. There's movies I wouldn't choose. I actually enjoy losing sometimes to see movies I wouldn't see, but I'm dramaed out, I think, from the choices that you guys have made.
Rich, my backup, which is another one I would assume you've seen it, is Shang-Chi. That's my back. That was my backup.
Okay. Yeah.
What was your backup?
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Okay. I don't know.
I do want to hear Dean review Shang-Chi.
Yeah, Marvel movie, Dean.
Funny enough, it's in a way a bit of a spiritual sequel to, in certain ways, to Iron Man 3, which was directed by Shane Black.
I have not seen Shang-Chi, by the way.
There's no, yeah.
Like, I feel like I would know. I'm looking. I just pulled it up. Like, nope, definitely not seen this.
First two acts, I think you would genuinely enjoy, and I think it would lose you in the third.
That's
fair enough. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. That's who we're going with. If you guys want to watch along with us. Anything else, boys? Before we step aside and get out of here, we've been on for over 2 hours. Gave an hour and a half of content for Week 17 for NFL. Did our movie silliness for the last half hour plus. Anything else, boys, or shall we get out of here? Looks like we're getting out of here.
If you're not sick of me and Daigle, you can jump over to Spike Week in about 15 minutes, and we're going to be talking about best ball. So,
I'm excited.
You're not
talk about Brock Bowers round 1.
If you're not sick of Dean in about an hour 45, you got him in the NBA Grinders live show. Right after that, I'll be on Crunch Time, and then because of the Christmas week wonky schedule, Tournament Take podcast will be live tonight on the RotoGrinders page as well, with the return of Bobby Gomes, Kirk Dees, and Derek Farnsworth, aka Notorious.
And speaking of wonky schedule, just stay tuned for next week. It sounds like we're going to go Thursday night, but we're not sure just yet.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll give you guys plenty of notice, and that's why you hit the, that's why you subscribe, so you get the notification. On behalf of, and you're going to get John Daigle from, I was going to say Parts Unknown, but I guess we're going to know. We're going to know. You're going to be in India.
Yeah.
We're going to know where you're at.
I'm going to watch the movie on the plane, but even I am unknown about if I'll have enough time to stick around. Like, there's hotel checkouts I need to worry about, but I'll be here for football portion for sure.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. On behalf of Daigle from Establish the Run, Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis, TJ, of course, from RotoGrinders, Agents of Fandom, Rob from Spike Week, from Hometown Ghost Stories. I was Dean from RotoGrinders. Go win something Week 17 and watch The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. We're out of here. Oh,